Make no mistake, in Hollywood, it's all a game of playing nice when the cameras are rolling, but once those lights go off, these actors become real jerks, and you'll be surprised by just how bratty a lot of them were in real life. Miriam Hopkins. She wasn't just difficult, she was next-level impossible. If there was drama on set, chances were Hopkins was right in the middle of it. She was insanely jealous, especially when it came to other actresses getting more attention than her. She'd throw tantrums, spread rumors, and even try to sabotage her co-stars. And no one got under her skin more than Bette Davis. Their feud was the stuff of Hollywood legend, pure, unfiltered, petty chaos. These two hated each other, and they didn't even try to hide it. When they starred together in The Old Maid, 1939, things got so bad that Hopkins demanded her dressing room be moved so she wouldn't have to be anywhere near Davis. But did that stop the tension? Not a chance. They fought constantly, stealing scenes from each other, throwing insults, and making the set a living hell for everyone else. Hopkins was convinced Davis was out to steal her thunder, which, to be fair, she kind of did, and Davis thought Hopkins was a manipulative, backstabbing diva. Constance Bennett. Elegant, glamorous, and an absolute snob. She was insufferable. She carried herself like she was above everyone else, and if you weren't a director or a leading man, she barely acknowledged your existence. Crew members, assistants, extras, she treated them like furniture, and don't even think about making her wait. She expected people to be at her service 24/7, but when it was time for her to do a scene, oh, suddenly she was in no rush. She'd show up late, take forever in hair and makeup, and then act annoyed when anyone dared suggest she hurry up. Sure, she was glamorous. Sure, she had talent, but her snobby, entitled attitude made her one of the worst to work with. Classic case of someone who thought being rich and famous gave them a free pass to be awful, and trust me, everyone noticed. Lila Lee. Lila Lee had the looks, the talent, and the Hollywood dream. But she also had a massive diva streak that made working with her a nightmare. If things didn't go exactly the way she wanted, cue the tantrums. And not just a little complaining, full-blown dramatic storming off-set meltdowns. She was also ridiculously unreliable. Directors would schedule a scene, cast and crew would be ready to roll, and where was Lila? Nowhere to be found. She'd show up hours late, or sometimes not at all, leaving everyone scrambling to work around her. And when she did decide to grace the set with her presence, she often had an attitude, acting like she was the one being inconvenienced. Kay Francis. She had an ego the size of Hollywood itself. She carried herself like royalty and acted like she was doing the world a favor just by existing. Fans? She didn't hate them, but she also didn't go out of her way to be nice. Autographs? Pictures? Small talk? Nope. She had places to be, and standing around chatting with admirers wasn't on her schedule. But her real attitude problem showed up on set. If a co-star even hinted at stealing her spotlight, she lost it. She hated being upstaged and had no problem letting everyone know who was the star of the film. If a fellow actress delivered a great performance, Francis would push for script changes to make sure she had the best lines and the most screen time. She wasn't interested in sharing the spotlight. She wanted to own it. Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin was the kind of guy who didn't just play a tough guy on screen, he was one in real life. And not in a cool, rugged Clint Eastwood kind of way, more in a drunken, brawling, borderline violent kind of way. He was Hollywood's resident hard-ass, both on and off set, and if you crossed paths with him, there was a good chance you'd end up in a fight, a lawsuit, or both. Let's start with the drinking. Marvin was notorious for knocking back whiskey like it was water. He drank on set, off set, before takes, after takes. Basically, if he was awake, there was probably booze involved, and when Lee Marvin drank, trouble followed. He picked fights constantly, usually with anyone who dared to look at him the wrong way. One of his most famous bar brawls happened in the 1960s when he got into it with a guy at a restaurant in New York. Marvin, in classic Marvin fashion, beat the hell out of the guy, so badly that he was actually arrested for disorderly conduct. And this wasn't a one-time thing. He was known for getting into drunken scuffles all over Hollywood. from swanky bars to dive joints where he probably should have known better. But if you think he just kept the fights between himself and other men, think again. Marvin was terrible to women. He had a reputation for being rough with his romantic partners, both emotionally and physically. The most famous example? His relationship with Michelle Triola. They were together for about 6 years, and when it ended, she took him to court in a massive lawsuit, demanding financial support for the time they had spent together. George C. Scott. His performances were intense, his presence undeniable, and his talent off the charts. But when the cameras weren't rolling, he was an absolute nightmare. Scott had a temper that could explode at any moment, and he didn't care who was on the receiving end. Directors, co-stars, producers, if you were in his way or dared to disagree with him, you were in for a very bad time. He was belligerent, aggressive, and unpredictable, making him one of the most difficult actors to work with in Hollywood. But the worst of it? His violent streak extended beyond movie sets. His relationship with Ava Gardner was a disaster, a dangerous one. The two had a fiery, passionate romance, but it was filled with explosive fights. And when Scott got mad, he got violent. Gardner later admitted that Scott physically abused her during their relationship, even beating her so badly once that she had to be hospitalized. And this wasn't just a one-time incident. His drinking made everything worse, and when he was drunk, his rage became even more uncontrollable. Even after Ava finally got away from him, Scott's reputation for having a dangerous temper followed him everywhere. His alcoholism only made things more unpredictable. He'd show up to sets drunk, get into shouting matches with directors, and throw fits when things didn't go his way. He hated authority, and if a producer or studio executive tried to tell him what to do, he'd lose it. One of his most famous blow-ups was during Patton, the film that won him an Oscar. You'd think that kind of recognition would make him grateful, right? Nope. Scott refused to accept the award, calling the whole Academy Awards ceremony a meat parade. He didn't just skip the event. He straight up rejected the honor, which was basically unheard of at the time. Sure, it was his way of sticking it to the industry, but it also reinforced just how difficult and defiant he was. Marie Dressler. She was a total nightmare. She had a reputation for being incredibly demanding, and if you didn't meet her high expectations, she'd let you know, loudly, rudely, and without an ounce of patience. She didn't just have diva moments, she had full-on superiority complex vibes. Co-stars? She didn't see them as equals. She saw them as supporting players in the great production that was Marie Dressler's career. If you were lucky, she'd ignore you. If you were unlucky, she'd make your life hell. She had no problem belittling actors she didn't think were on her level, and if she didn't like you, forget it. She'd gossip, complain, or even push for you to be replaced. And let's talk about her attitude toward directors and producers. Most actors at least pretended to be cooperative. Dressler? Not so much. Joan Bennett. If she didn't think you were up to her standards, she had zero patience for you and wasn't afraid to make it known. She had a sharp tongue and could cut someone down with a single withering remark. There was the time she completely humiliated a young actress on set. While filming The Macumber Affair, 1947, with Gregory Peck, Bennett reportedly made snide remarks about a lesser-known actress in the cast, dismissing her as just another pretty face who didn't deserve to share the screen with real actors. She wasn't the kind of star to take newcomers under her wing. If anything, she saw them as competition and treated them accordingly. Robert Mitchum. Mitchum was the ultimate Hollywood bad boy, effortlessly cool, ridiculously talented, and completely indifferent to the rules. While other actors played the game, Mitchum barely acknowledged that there was a game. He didn't just not care about Hollywood's rules, he actively mocked them. He was combative, sarcastic, and downright disrespectful to directors, producers, and pretty much anyone who tried to tell him what to do. He'd show up late, refuse to take things seriously, and sometimes flat out ignore instructions. When a journalist once asked him about acting, he famously shrugged and said, "It sure beats working." That was his attitude. Hollywood was just a paycheck, and he had no interest in playing the star. Then there was his criminal record. In 1948, he was arrested for drug possession, a huge scandal at the time. He He served time in jail, and while it could have ruined his career, he brushed it off like it was nothing. While most actors would have scrambled to rebuild their reputation, Mitchum leaned into his rebel image, making him even more legendary. His personal life was just as wild. He drank excessively, got into bar fights, and was known for his wandering eye, despite being married for over 50 years. He once insulted Frank Sinatra, a dangerous move, considering Sinatra's mob ties, calling him a short hoodlum with a high voice. Lucky for him, Sinatra let it slide. James Cagney. Cagney may have been one of Hollywood's most iconic tough guys, but off-screen, he could be just as difficult as the gangsters he played. He had a reputation for being arrogant, headstrong, and completely unwilling to take direction from anyone. If a director tried to tell him what to do, he'd push back hard, sometimes outright refusing to follow instructions. He believed he knew best, and if you disagreed, too bad. Cagney's clashes with directors were legendary. He hated being told how to act, which made working with him a nightmare for filmmakers who dared to challenge him. He once stormed off set after a disagreement, leaving the crew scrambling. Even his fellow actors weren't safe from his sharp tongue. He could be dismissive, curt, and downright rude if he didn't respect them. Walter Matthau. While audiences loved his grumpy but lovable persona, those who worked with him saw the real Grump, one who could be impatient, dismissive, and downright rude. His difficult attitude made him a challenge on set, proving that sometimes life really does imitate art. One of his worst habits was talking down to those he considered beneath him. Crew members, assistants, and even younger actors often bore the brunt of his sharp tongue. He had little patience for delays, mistakes, or anything that disrupted his workflow, and he wasn't shy about making his frustrations very clear. His temper was another issue. While he wasn't necessarily violent, he had a tendency to snap at people over the smallest things. Directors who tried to give him too many notes, he'd roll his eyes, argue, or just flat out ignore them. Co-stars who needed multiple takes, he'd grumble and make passive-aggressive comments under his breath. Even his longtime friend and co-star Jack Lemmon, one of the few people who could tolerate him, admitted that Matthau could be difficult. Their on-screen chemistry was legendary, but off-camera, Lemmon often had to play peacemaker when Matthau's attitude got out of hand. Spencer Tracy. Spencer was one of Hollywood's most respected actors, but behind the scenes he was a mess. A heavy drinker with a nasty temper, he could be moody, cruel, and downright unbearable to those around him, especially to the people who cared about him the most. Tracy was a functioning alcoholic, but just barely. He'd show up to set hungover or still drunk from the night before, making life miserable for co-stars and directors. He could be gruff, impatient, and dismissive, especially if he wasn't in the mood to work, which, thanks to his drinking, was often. People walked on eggshells around him because his temper could explode at any moment. But the person who suffered the most? Katharine Hepburn. Their relationship is often romanticized, but in reality, it was deeply toxic. Tracy was emotionally distant, unpredictable, and often cruel to her. She put up with his drinking, his rage, and his self-destructive tendencies, sacrificing her own happiness to take care of him. He, in turn, gave her very little. He refused to leave his wife for her, despite their marriage being long dead, and he'd disappear on benders, leaving Hepburn to pick up the pieces. Frederick March. March had a reputation for being inappropriate with women on set. He was known for making unwanted advances, being overly touchy, and sometimes behaving in a way that made his female co-stars uncomfortable. His behavior wasn't just rumors. Some actresses even spoke out about how he acted behind the scenes. Back in the day, powerful men often got away with this kind of thing, but March's actions didn't go unnoticed. Despite being a talented actor, his off-screen behavior left a bad impression on many people who worked with him. Tyrone Power. He was constantly involved with different women, but he didn't always treat them well. On top of that, he also had a habit of jumping from one relationship to the next, leaving a trail of broken hearts behind him. As a matter of fact, some of his exes felt used or betrayed, and there were stories about him being distant, unfaithful, or just losing interest quickly. While fans adored him, His love life was far messier than his charming image suggested. David Niven. She had a reputation for being charming and witty, but not everyone found him so lovable behind the scenes. He had a sharp tongue and a habit of making fun of people, sometimes in a way that felt more mean-spirited than playful. He could be sarcastic and cutting, and some felt he enjoys making others the butt of his jokes a little too much. While he had plenty of friends in Hollywood, there were also those who thought he was arrogant and condescending. His humor, which seemed charming to audiences, could come off as cruel to those who knew him personally. Arlene Judge. She may not have been a Hollywood A-lister, but her attitude sure was. She had a temper that could go from zero to absolute chaos in seconds, and if she didn't like you, there was a solid chance things could get physical. One of her most infamous blow-ups happened on the set of Ladies Must Love, 1933. Judge got into a full-on fight with a co-star, allegedly over a minor disagreement that spiraled way out of control. Witnesses claimed she threw something, a prop, a script, no one's sure, shouted a string of insults, and stormed off in a rage. Not exactly the way to win over directors and producers. And let's talk about her personal life. 7 marriages. Now, plenty of Hollywood stars had a revolving door of spouses, but with Judge, it was less about bad luck in love and more about her being impossible to handle. She had a wild streak a mile wide and was known for her unpredictable, sometimes reckless behavior. One of her husbands, director Wesley Ruggles, supposedly left her because he couldn't deal with her constant outbursts and fiery temper. Another, businessman Dan Topping, who later married Sonia Heaney, reportedly ended things because their fights were explosive. Claire Trevor. Trevor had a serious reputation for being cold and distant, especially toward her co-stars. She wasn't the type to engage in small talk between takes or bond with cast members over lunch. While other actors built friendships on set, Trevor kept to herself. Some thought she was just private, but others saw it as straight-up rudeness. And when it came to directors, she was not the easiest person to work with. She had a stubborn streak and hated taking orders from people she didn't respect, which, unfortunately, was most people. If she didn't like the way a scene was being shot, she'd push back, hard. Directors often found themselves in frustrating battles with her over creative choices, and she wasn't afraid to make her displeasure very obvious. One story that made the rounds involved her time filming Born to Kill, 1947. She was supposed to have a tense, dramatic moment with co-star Lawrence Tierney, who was a whole other level of difficult. And let's just say the tension wasn't just acting. Trevor found Tierney so unbearable that she flat out refused to do extra takes with him unless absolutely necessary. She made it clear she had no interest in dealing with him off-screen, and that was a pattern with her. If she didn't like someone, she didn't fake it. Marion Davies. A lot of her power in Hollywood came from her relationship with publishing tycoon William Randolph Hearst. He practically owned her career, using his newspapers to hype her up while forcing studios to cast her in leading roles, even when she wasn't right for them. Because of this, Davies developed a serious superiority complex. She knew she had the most powerful man in Hollywood backing her, and she wasn't afraid to act like it. If she wanted a role, she got it. If she didn't want to work with someone, they'd mysteriously be replaced. Directors and producers walked on eggshells around her, afraid of what Hearst might do if she wasn't happy. But Davies wasn't just a diva. She could be downright mean. She had a habit of mocking other actresses, especially the ones she saw as competition. Take her relationship with Citizen Kane inspiration Marion Cooper. She hated being compared to her and wasn't shy about throwing shade. She could be dismissive, catty, and condescending, particularly toward younger actresses trying to break into the business. And let's talk about those infamous parties. While they were legendary, full of booze, scandal, and A-list stars, Davies wasn't exactly a gracious host. If she was in a bad mood, which happened often when she was drinking, she could turn vicious. She'd insult guests to their faces, spread gossip, and even pit people against each other for her own amusement. If you were in her inner circle, great. But if you weren't, good luck. Thelma Ritter. For starters, Ritter had zero patience for incompetence. If a co-star flubbed their lines or a director took too long setting up a shot, she'd let them have it. She didn't sugarcoat anything. If she thought someone was wasting time or dragging down a scene, she'd say so, often with a sarcastic bite. Some found her honesty refreshing, but others, not so much. More than a few actors walked away from working with her feeling humiliated. And when it came to younger actresses, Ritter wasn't exactly a mentor. She had spent years clawing her way up in Hollywood, and she didn't have much sympathy for newcomers trying to do the same. She could be dismissive of young, up-and-coming actresses, often brushing them off as lightweight talents who didn't deserve the spotlight. If you were a fresh-faced starlet hoping for a kind word from Ritter, you were out of luck. She was also known to be stubborn as hell. Once she had a way of doing something, that was it. Directors who tried to get her to change her approach were usually met with an eye roll and a sarcastic remark. She wasn't the kind of actress who took direction well. She expected people to trust that she knew what she was doing, and she didn't like to be questioned. Jean Parker. For one, Parker had a serious ego. She may not have been an A-list superstar, but she sure acted like one. She believed she deserved bigger roles and better billing, and when she didn't get them, she let people know she wasn't happy. She had a habit of complaining about the scripts she was given, the directors she worked with, and even her co-stars, especially if she thought they were getting more attention than she was. She also had a reputation for being moody. One day, she'd be charming and professional. The next, she'd be cold and standoffish, refusing to engage with her castmates. People on set never knew which Jean Parker they were going to get. Hollywood always had shining stars, but beneath the surface lies a darker side, a history marked by manipulation, betrayal, and cruelty. Some actresses didn't just play villains on screen. They brought their ruthlessness into real life. From feuds that destroyed careers to schemes that went far beyond the cameras, their actions weren't just scandalous, they were downright chilling. But who were these women, and what made them cross the line? Norma Shearer. She was a stunning, poised actress at the top of her game in the 1930s, but with a little secret weapon up her sleeve. Her husband, Irving Thalberg, the head honcho of MGM, the most powerful studio at the time. Being married to the boy wonder of Hollywood meant Norma wasn't just any actress. She practically had a direct line to the casting couch, and not in the way you'd think. Here's where it gets juicy. Norma was accused of using her marital connection to snag roles that other actresses were gunning for, sometimes ruthlessly. Take Joan Crawford, for instance. She and Norma were in a not-so-subtle battle for the spotlight. Joan once said, "How can I compete with Norma? She sleeps with the boss." It wasn't just Joan, though. Myrna Loy, another MGM star, also felt the sting of Norma's influence. Loy believed she lost roles because Norma had first dibs on the juiciest scripts. Norma wasn't just sitting around waiting for opportunities to fall into her lap, though. Oh no, she hustled. She even went so far as to commission provocative photos of herself to prove she could handle sexier, edgier roles like the lead in The Divorcee, a part that won her an Oscar. That move was bold, but it didn't win her many friends. Other actresses saw it as her playing dirty, using her privilege and connections to bulldoze her way to the top. And here's the kicker. Norma wasn't apologetic about any of it. She knew the power she had, and she used it shamelessly. To her, it was survival in a cutthroat industry. But to those on the losing end, like Joan and Myrna, it looked more like sabotage. Norma's career eventually faded, but her reputation as a savvy and selfish player in Hollywood's golden era is still part of her legacy. Was she a villain, or just a smart woman making the most of her circumstances? Depends on how you look at it. Either way, she left her mark, and not everyone was happy about it. Mae West. When you hear her name, you think of Hollywood's original queen of sass and self-promotion. Mae wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature, strutting through the entertainment world like she owned it. And honestly, she kinda did. But here's the thing. While Mae was bold, brilliant, and completely unforgettable, she had a way of making everything revolve around one person, Mae West. Mae was all about Mae, and she didn't care who got overshadowed along the way. In interviews, she'd dominate the conversation with her razor-sharp wit and trademark double entendres, barely giving anyone else a chance to shine. Co-stars, directors, they were just supporting characters in the Mae West show. She once said, "I never loved anybody as much as I loved myself." And let me tell you, she lived by that motto. On set, Mae insisted on having complete control over her lines, her wardrobe, and even how her scenes were shot. Directors found her exhausting, and co-stars often complained they were reduced to mere props. One infamous story involves a young Cary Grant, who got his big break in She Done Him Wrong because Mae thought he was hot. She literally plucked him out of obscurity and made him her leading man, but only because he made her look good. Mae even wrote most of her own scripts, which sounds impressive until you realize they were mostly vehicles for her to deliver one-liners and look fabulous. If a scene wasn't all about her, she'd either rewrite it or refuse to shoot it. Her co-stars? They were lucky if they got a word in edgewise. But here's the thing about Mae. She didn't care if people thought she was selfish. In fact, she leaned into it. She famously said, "I'm not afraid of criticism. I gave up that fear long ago." To Mae, being selfish wasn't a flaw. It was a survival strategy in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. So, love her or hate her, Mae West made Hollywood play by her rules. Was she selfish? Absolutely. But she was also a trailblazer, proving that a woman could run the show and own it without apologizing for a second. Marilyn Monroe. She had the looks, the charm, and that breathy voice that made her an icon, but behind all the glamour was a woman who didn't always play nice. Sure, Marilyn seemed like the sweet, shy girl next door, but in reality, she could be manipulative, selfish, and frustrating to deal with. Marilyn had a way of making everything about her, especially when it came to relationships. She charmed men with ease, but many of them, from Joe DiMaggio to Arthur Miller, felt like they were used as stepping stones or props to maintain her image. Marilyn craved adoration, and if she wasn't the center of attention, she'd find a way to turn the spotlight back on herself. She had a knack for keeping people hooked on her vulnerability, but some insiders felt it was all part of her act, a way to control those around her. On set, Marilyn's behavior drove directors and co-stars up the wall. She was notoriously late, sometimes by hours, leaving entire crews waiting while she finished getting ready or dealt with her personal dramas. Directors like Billy Wilder, who worked with her on Some Like It Hot, called her a nightmare to work with, even if the results were worth it. Studio executives lost money because of her delays, and she'd show up unprepared, forgetting her lines and making scenes take twice as long to shoot. What's wild is that Marilyn's antics weren't always accidental. Some believed she showed up late or caused chaos on purpose just to keep everyone off balance and ensure she remained the most important person in the room. She once said, "If I'd observed all the rules, I'd never have got anywhere." And honestly, that tells you everything you need to know. Still, Marilyn's charm was her secret weapon. Even when she upset people, they couldn't stay mad for long. She knew how to win people over with a pout or a laugh, and she leaned into that power whenever it suited her. Was she selfish? Probably. But in her world, where everyone wanted a piece of her, maybe it was the only way she knew how to survive. Lana Turner. She was known as the ultimate Hollywood glamour queen, famous for her beauty, charisma, and string of headline-grabbing romances. But beneath the shimmering exterior, Lana's personal life was a whirlwind of drama and questionable priorities, especially when it came to her role as a mother. Her focus on fame, love, and maintaining her image often left her daughter, Cheryl Crane, feeling like an afterthought in her life. Lana's love life was a tabloid dream, or nightmare, depending on how you look at it. She married 8 times to 7 different men, and each relationship seemed more chaotic than the last. Her constant search for love and validation often overshadowed her responsibilities as a mother. Cheryl, her only child, grew up in the middle of this storm, frequently shuffled to the side as Lana pursued her next romance or career move. The most infamous chapter of Lana's life and the one that put her relationship with Cheryl under a microscope, was the demise of her abusive boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, in 1958. Stompanato was a mobster who had been physically and emotionally abusive to Lana. One night, during a particularly violent argument between Lana and Johnny, 14-year-old Cheryl intervened. She grabbed a knife and stabbed Stompanato to protect her mother. The incident was ruled justifiable homicide, but it threw Cheryl into the spotlight and left her emotionally scarred. Many people blamed Lana for exposing Cheryl to such a toxic environment in the first place. Critics said Lana's pattern of prioritizing her own happiness, especially in her choice of volatile, dangerous men, put her daughter in harm's way. Cheryl later revealed that she felt neglected and isolated, living in the shadow of her mother's glamorous yet chaotic life. She described how Lana's obsession with her public image often left her feeling like an accessory, not a priority. Even after the Stompanato tragedy, Lana continued to focus on maintaining her movie star persona, often at the expense of her relationship with Cheryl. Their mother-daughter bond remained strained for years, with Cheryl struggling to find her own identity outside of Lana's shadow. Lana's story is a complex one. On the one hand, she was a woman navigating a male-dominated industry, doing whatever it took to stay on top. On the other hand, her relentless pursuit of fame and love left behind a trail of emotional wreckage, with her daughter paying the steepest price. It's a classic case of Hollywood glamour hiding a much darker reality underneath. Gloria Swanson. This woman wasn't just a Hollywood actress. She was a powerhouse. In the silent film era, she ruled the screen with her dramatic flair, extravagant wardrobe, and larger-than-life persona. But behind all of that, Swanson had a reputation for doing whatever it took to get ahead, even if it meant stepping on a few toes, or breaking hearts, along the way. Swanson's ambition was unmatched. She wasn't content with being just another actress. She wanted to be the star. And she wasn't afraid to manipulate the people around her to climb higher. One of the most talked about examples was her relationship with Joseph P. Kennedy, father of future President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy wasn't just her lover. He was also her financier, helping to fund her lavish lifestyle and her failing production company. Swanson benefited greatly from the relationship, but when the financial fallout came, Kennedy walked away relatively unscathed, while Swanson's career took a hit. Critics argue she used Kennedy as much as he used her, making their affair a textbook case of mutual manipulation. Professionally, Swanson had a way of alienating people. She was fiercely independent and demanded creative control over her projects, which wasn't common for actresses at the time. While her drive was admirable, it didn't win her many friends in the industry. Directors and producers often found her difficult to work with because she insisted on doing things her way, even if it caused friction on set. Her personal life was just as messy. Swanson married 6 times, and her relationships often ended in scandal or bitterness. She seemed to view her partners as stepping stones, prioritizing her career over building lasting connections. Her third husband, French aristocrat Henri de la Falaise, was a particularly dramatic case. Their marriage gave her an air of European sophistication that elevated her status, but it ended when the glitter faded, leaving yet another broken tie in her wake. By the time she starred in Sunset Boulevard, her iconic comeback role that mirrored her own life, Swanson's reputation as a self-serving, fiercely ambitious star had already been cemented. In many ways, her performance as Norma Desmond was more autobiographical than anyone realized. Was Gloria Swanson a villain? Not exactly. She was a woman in an unforgiving industry, fighting for control of her destiny. But her relentless ambition often left others hurt, discarded, or disillusioned. To some, she was a trailblazer. To others, she was simply ruthless. Tallulah Bankhead. If you thought the luxurious lifestyle and fame of old Hollywood was all about prim and proper behavior, Bankhead proved you wrong. She was loud, brash, and lived life on her own terms, often at the expense of everyone around her. Bankhead's reputation for wild behavior was legendary, She was known for her heavy drinking, drug use, and a string of fiery affairs that were as scandalous as they were public. But what really set her apart was her complete lack of a filter. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, and when she did, it was often sharp, biting, and at times cruel. Her sharp tongue was both a weapon and a shield. Bankhead had a knack for making ruthless, cutting remarks about everyone, from co-stars to directors and even her own family. She once told a fellow actress, "I don't care what you do as long as you don't do it in the street and frighten the horses," a line that perfectly summed up her unapologetic nature. She would go out of her way to make people uncomfortable, whether by mocking others' looks or questioning their intelligence. It wasn't that she was insecure. Quite the opposite. She just didn't care about anyone else's feelings. Her cruelty extended beyond just words, too. On set, Bankhead was known for being difficult to work with, often causing trouble during shoots. Directors found her hard to control, and she frequently showed up late or in no condition to work, thanks to her partying habits. Yet somehow she managed to still get roles, largely due to her outrageous charm and undeniable screen presence. Bankhead's personal life was just as turbulent. She had multiple love affairs, some with famous men and women, but never seemed to form lasting connections. She used people as disposable objects to satisfy her own needs, whether it was attention, companionship, or just a wild night of fun. For her, relationships were more about entertainment than genuine emotional connection. Yet, despite all the chaos, Tallulah Bankhead became a cult figure, beloved by some for her outlandishness and celebrated for living a life that most could only dream of in terms of freedom, albeit with consequences. She didn't give a damn about social norms or expectations, and while many found her antics tiresome or even cruel, others admired her boldness. She lived life on her own terms, and damn the consequences. In the end, Tallulah Bankhead was more than just a Hollywood star. She was a chaotic force of nature, a person who didn't care what others thought, and who would rather burn bridges than play nice. In a way, she was the perfect reflection of an industry that often valued the appearance of perfection over the messiness of real life. Barbara Stanwyck. She had a reputation for being a master at playing tough, no-nonsense characters on screen, but it seems she took a bit of that tough exterior into her personal life, too. Stanwyck was all about self-preservation. She knew how to build a career and maintain an image, but she also had a knack for cutting ties with people when they no longer served her interests. She wasn't the type to keep people around just for the sake of it, whether it was friends, co-stars, or even family. If someone no longer had a role in her life, they were quickly shown the door. There was no room for sentimentality in Stanwyck's world. Her fiercely private nature didn't help her popularity in Hollywood circles either. While other stars might bask in the spotlight and engage with their colleagues or fans, Stanwyck kept her distance, often keeping to herself or her closest circle of people. She had a strict keep your business to yourself policy, which sometimes made her seem aloof, standoffish, or even unapproachable. This detached nature didn't endear her to some of her co-stars or those working closely with her. Despite being a beloved and respected actress, she often isolated herself on set, leaving others to feel like they didn't have a real connection with her. There was a certain coldness to her, especially when it came to personal relationships. She had 2 marriages, both of which ended badly. The first to actor Frank Fay was rocky, marked by infidelity and tension, and after their divorce, Stanwyck's relationships with men were often seen as transactional rather than emotionally fulfilling. Stanwyck's approach to relationships wasn't just about keeping things private. It was about control. She was known for playing the role of the hard-nosed, calculating woman in many of her films, but it seems that role extended off-screen too. When she felt someone was a threat to her career, her personal space, or her privacy, they were quickly cut off. It wasn't about being mean. It was about protecting her territory, her image, and her career from anything that might cause her harm. Though many admired her for her unmatched acting talent, her emotional detachment and self-preserving nature left a trail of broken ties in Hollywood. While she was deeply respected for her work and known for being a professional on set, She wasn't the kind of person who would stick around for the long haul when it came to friendships or anything that didn't directly benefit her. Stanwyck's legacy is filled with glowing accolades for her skill, but her personal story is one of cold pragmatism and calculated decisions. She wasn't afraid to burn bridges if it meant advancing herself or protecting her space. Bette Davis. She was raw, unapologetic, and fiercely determined to maintain her star status no matter what it took. But in her relentless pursuit of stardom, Davis wasn't exactly concerned with how many bridges she burned or who got offended along the way. In fact, she seemed to almost revel in her reputation for being tough, demanding, and sometimes downright cruel. Her famous feuds and sharp tongue were as much a part of her legacy as her Oscar-winning performances. One of the most legendary and most vicious rivalries in Hollywood history was the one between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Their feud, which started in the 1930s, reached new heights when they were cast as the leads in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962. The two actresses couldn't have been more different, and their animosity went beyond mere professional competition. Davis once said, "She's a bitch, but she's my bitch." That pretty much sums up the animosity between them. There was no love lost, only cold, calculated contempt. The stories from the set of Baby Jane are legendary. They would constantly try to one-up each other, sabotaging each other's scenes and playing psychological games behind the scenes. It wasn't just on-screen drama. It was real, personal, and filled with spite. But Davis didn't reserve her sharp tongue for just one person. She was known for cutting people down, colleagues or not. She didn't care if she offended anyone with her direct and often hurtful criticisms. Directors, co-stars, and even studio heads could find themselves on the receiving end of Davis's biting remarks. She was a woman who demanded perfection from herself and everyone around her, and if you didn't measure up, you were fair game. If you couldn't take the heat, you were quickly discarded. It wasn't about making friends for Bette. It was about making sure she stayed on top, no matter the cost. Davis's famous outbursts and public criticism didn't make her popular in Hollywood, but they certainly kept her in the conversation. She was known for her bluntness and her refusal to play the game the way the studio system wanted her to. While many stars of the time were busy towing the line and maintaining a squeaky clean image, Davis made it clear she was going to do things her way, even if it meant stepping on a few toes along the way. Her story is one of fierce determination, but also one marked by a trail of offended colleagues and damaged relationships. Davis wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers if it meant maintaining her status as one of the greatest actresses in Hollywood, and while that made her unforgettable, it also made her a polarizing figure. In the end, Bette Davis proved that in the cutthroat world of Hollywood, it wasn't enough to just be talented. You also had to be willing to fight, even if it meant losing a few friends along the way. Joan Crawford. Here's what you may not know. Joan Crawford is one of the most infamous stars in Hollywood history, but not for the reasons most would expect. While she was adored by millions for her glamorous roles behind closed doors, Crawford's life was a storm of manipulation, control, and a relentless desire for success at any cost. Crawford was known for putting her career above everything else, family included. She often seemed to view her relationships, especially with her children, as mere extensions of her public image, which she worked tirelessly to maintain. But her personal life was far from ideal, and it wasn't long before rumors began to swirl about how she treated her family, especially her children. In her later years, her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford, famously penned a memoir called Mommy Dearest, in which she accused Joan of severe emotional and physical abuse. The book portrayed Crawford as a cold, controlling mother, and the revelations were shocking. Christina described Joan as a woman who expected perfection, punished her children for minor transgressions, and was a tyrant behind closed doors. These Hollywood stars are some of the greats from the Golden Age era, but don't be fooled. A lot of them had dark and unpleasant sides they conveniently hid from the public eye. Sadly, this gave them some nasty reputations that stand side by side with their immense contributions to the industry. Lana Turner. She was born Julia Jean Turner on February 8, 1921, in Wallace, Idaho, and Lana embodied the quintessential Hollywood starlet, known for her stunning beauty and captivating screen presence. However, her personal life, fraught with scandal and tragedy, often overshadowed her cinematic achievements. Turner's entry into Hollywood was nothing short of a fairy tale. Discovered at the age of 16 while sipping a soda at a Hollywood soda fountain, she was quickly signed by Warner Brothers. Her breakthrough came with the film They Won't Forget, 1937, which showcased her talent and allure. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Turner became one of MGM's most bankable stars, with notable performances in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946, and Peyton Place, 1957, for which she received an Academy Award nomination. Despite her professional success, Turner's off-screen life was marred by a series of scandals and personal tragedies that kept her in the public eye for all the wrong reasons. Her romantic relationships were a significant source of controversy. Turner was married 8 times to 7 different men, each relationship marked by drama and public scrutiny. Her tumultuous love life contributed to her bad girl image, making headlines with every new affair and breakup. The most infamous scandal of Turner's life was the murder of her lover, Johnny Stompanato, in 1958. Stompanato, a mobster with ties to the Los Angeles underworld, was killed by Turner's teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, in what was ruled as a justifiable homicide. Crane claimed she acted in defense of her mother during a violent argument. The sensational trial and media frenzy that followed painted Turner as a tragic figure ensnared in a web of violence and scandal. Turner's numerous affairs also added to her notorious reputation. She was linked romantically with many high-profile men, including actors, musicians, and businessmen. These relationships were often turbulent and highly publicized, reinforcing her image as a glamorous but troubled star. Her affair with actor Tyrone Power, while both were married to others, was particularly scandalous and captured the imagination of the tabloid press. Turner's personal tragedies did not end with her romantic entanglements. She faced several health issues, including bouts of alcoholism and an addiction to prescription drugs. Her struggles with substance abuse further complicated her life and career, leading to professional setbacks and personal anguish. In the midst of these scandals, Turner continued to work, delivering memorable performances that reminded audiences of her talent and resilience. Films like Imitation of Life, 1959, highlighted her ability to portray complex, emotionally charged characters, drawing on her own life experiences. Gloria Swanson. Gloria was born Gloria Mae Josephine Swanson on March 27, 1899, in Chicago, Illinois, and seemed destined for the spotlight. Raised in a military family that moved frequently, Swanson's early life was marked by a sense of adventure and constant change. Her entry into the world of entertainment came almost by accident when she visited a movie studio in Chicago at the age of 15. Enchanted by the nascent film industry, Swanson quickly found herself in front of the camera, starting with minor roles in silent films. Swanson's career took off when she signed with Paramount Pictures in 1919. Her beauty, charm, and talent quickly made her one of the most popular actresses of the silent film era. She starred in a series of successful films, including Male and Female, 1919, Why Change Your Wife, 1920, and Beyond the Rocks, 1922, often playing sophisticated and glamorous women. By the 1920s, Swanson had become a symbol of Hollywood glamour, commanding a salary of $20,000 a week and living a life of opulence and extravagance. However, Swanson's ascent to stardom was accompanied by a reputation for being demanding and self-centered. Her insistence on control over her films and her diva-like behavior on set earned her the label of a prima donna. Swanson was known for her meticulous attention to detail and her desire to have a say in every aspect of her films. She often clashed with directors and producers over creative decisions, insisting on having things her way. This insistence on control was seen as both a testament to her commitment to quality and a sign of her demanding nature. During the production of Queen Kelly, 1929, directed by Erich von Stroheim, Swanson's demands and disagreements with von Stroheim over the film's direction led to significant delays and budget overruns. The film eventually went unfinished and was a financial disaster, contributing to Swanson's difficult reputation. Her off-screen behavior also contributed to her prima donna image. She was known for her lavish lifestyle and penchant for luxury, which often set her apart from her peers. Her demands for special treatment and her aloof demeanor were frequently noted by those who worked with her. Swanson's demands for elaborate costumes and sets were legendary. For the film The Love of Sunya, 1927, she insisted on wearing a pearl-studded gown that cost a fortune to make. Such extravagances were part of her larger-than-life persona, but also reinforced her reputation as a self-centered star. Swanson's extravagant lifestyle extended beyond her professional life. Her financial mismanagement and lavish spending were often criticized and led to significant financial troubles throughout her career. Her love for luxury knew no bounds. She lived in a grand mansion, threw extravagant parties, and surrounded herself with the finest things money could buy. This lifestyle, while glamorous, was unsustainable and led to financial difficulties. Swanson's penchant for luxury led her to invest heavily in opulent homes, jewelry, and high fashion. Her Beverly Hills mansion, complete with a ballroom and swimming pool, was a testament to her love of opulence. Despite her high earnings, Swanson struggled with financial management. Her investments in various business ventures, including a failed attempt to produce her own films, drained her resources. Her spending often outpaced her income, leading to significant debt. Swanson's attempt to produce and star in her own films through her production company, Gloria Productions, was a financial disaster. The failure of Queen Kelly and other projects left her deeply in debt, forcing her to declare bankruptcy in the 1930s. Despite these challenges, Swanson continued to work in Hollywood, though her star had faded by the 1940s. Her career saw a remarkable resurgence with her iconic role as Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, 1950. The role, which mirrored her own journey from stardom to obscurity, earned her critical acclaim and revitalized her career. Marlene Dietrich. Marie Magdalene Dietrich was born on December 27, 1901, in Berlin, Germany. She was a woman of enigmatic charm and unparalleled allure. Her career in Hollywood began in the late 1920s and quickly flourished, making her one of the most iconic figures of the Golden Age cinema. Her fascinating personality was not just limited to her on-screen persona, her off-screen life as well, marked by a reputation for being cold and calculating. Dietrich's journey to stardom started in the cabarets and theaters of Weimar Berlin, where her distinctive voice and androgynous style caught the attention of filmmaker Josef von Sternberg. He cast her in The Blue Angel, 1930, a role that would propel her to international fame. Dietrich followed von Sternberg to Hollywood, where she starred in a series of films that cemented her status as a screen legend, including Morocco, 1930, Shanghai Express, 1932, and Desire, 1936. Despite her professional success, Dietrich's personal life was riddled with controversy. She was often seen as cold and calculating, a reputation that was partly a result of her manipulative tendencies. Dietrich was known to manipulate people and situations to her advantage, using her charm and intelligence to maintain her position in the fiercely competitive world of Hollywood. Her manipulative nature was evident in her professional relationships. Dietrich's collaborations with Josef von Sternberg, for example, were marked by her ability to assert control over her image and career. She meticulously crafted her public persona, ensuring that she remained a subject of fascination and admiration. Her relationships with powerful figures in the film industry also demonstrated her ability to navigate and influence the dynamics of Hollywood to her benefit. In addition to her manipulative tendencies, Dietrich's numerous affairs were a significant source of scandal. Her sexual openness was considered provocative and shocking for the time, as she defied conventional norms and embraced her desires with unapologetic boldness. Dietrich's affairs were not limited to men. She was known to have relationships with both men and women, further challenging the societal norms of her era. Dietrich's affairs with high-profile figures such as actor John Gilbert, French actor Jean Gabin, and American writer Erich Maria Remarque were well publicized and added to her scandalous reputation. Her relationships often overlapped, and she maintained a sense of mystery about her private life that kept the public intrigued. Her openness about her bisexuality was particularly controversial in an era when such matters were rarely discussed openly. Her sexual liberation and numerous affairs contributed to her image as a rebellious and unconventional figure. While this added to her allure, it also fueled perceptions of her as a calculating and cold individual who used her relationships for personal gain. Dietrich's ability to captivate and manipulate those around her, combined with her disregard for traditional moral standards, cemented her reputation as a complex and often controversial figure. Marlene Dietrich's life and career were a blend of calculated brilliance and unapologetic boldness. Her reputation for being cold and calculating was shaped by her manipulative tendencies and her numerous affairs, which challenged the social norms of her time. Despite, or perhaps because of, these qualities, she remains one of the most enduring icons of Hollywood's golden age. Joan Crawford. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur on March 23, 1904, in San Antonio, Texas, she is remembered as one of the most iconic actresses of Hollywood's golden age. With a career spanning over 5 decades, she captivated audiences with her performances in films such as Grand Hotel, 1932, The Women, 1939, and Mildred Pierce, 1945, for which she won an Academy Award for Best Actress. However, beneath the glamour and success lay a darker, more controversial legacy, particularly surrounding her tumultuous relationship with her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford. Joan Crawford's personal life has been the subject of much scrutiny and speculation, often overshadowing her professional achievements. Her reputation for being evil is primarily rooted in the allegations of abuse and manipulation made by her daughter, Christina. These allegations were brought to light in Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest, published in 1978, a year after Joan's death. The book painted a harrowing picture of Joan as a cruel, abusive, and emotionally volatile mother, a stark contrast to her public persona. One of the most shocking aspects of Joan Crawford's alleged mistreatment of Christina was her attempt to cut her daughter out of her will. Joan adopted Christina in 1940, hoping to create a picture-perfect family to bolster her image as a caring and loving mother. However, their relationship was fraught with conflict and animosity, which only intensified as Christina grew older. Joan's disinheritance of Christina became a significant point of contention after Joan's death in 1977. The contents of Joan's will revealed that she had deliberately excluded Christina and her adopted son, Christopher, from any inheritance. The will stated, "It is my intention to make no provision herein for my son Christopher or my daughter Christina for reasons which are well known to them." This exclusion was a final act of estrangement, cementing the perception of Joan as a vindictive and controlling figure. The attempt to cut Christina out of the will can be seen as a culmination of their long-standing, tumultuous relationship. According to Christina, Joan's actions were driven by jealousy, control, and a desire to maintain a spotless public image. Christina's memoir recounts numerous instances of physical and emotional abuse, suggesting that Joan's decision to disinherit her was yet another way to exert control and inflict emotional pain. Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest, and its subsequent film adaptation further solidified Joan Crawford's reputation as an evil figure in Hollywood lore. The book's vivid descriptions of Joan's erratic and abusive behavior shocked the public and led to a reassessment of her personality. Scenes depicting Joan's violent outbursts, such as the infamous No Wire Hangers incident, became a representation of her alleged cruelty. Bing Crosby. Born Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. on May 3, 1903 in Tacoma, Washington, Crosby was a towering figure in 20th century entertainment, renowned for his smooth voice, charismatic persona, and enduring influence in music and film. Emerging during Hollywood's golden age, Crosby's career spanned decades, leaving an indelible mark on both popular culture and the industry itself. Crosby's ascent to fame began with his distinctive baritone voice, which propelled him to become one of the best-selling recording artists of all time. Hits like White Christmas and Swinging on a Star cemented his place as a musical icon, while his film roles in beloved classics such as Going My Way, 1944, and The Bells of St. Mary's, 1945, showcased his versatile talent on screen. Behind the scenes, however, Crosby's personal life was marked by tumult, particularly in his relationships with his children from his first marriage to Dixie Lee. The couple had 4 sons: Gary, twins Philip and Dennis, and Lindsay. While Crosby projected a wholesome and affable image to the public, his parenting style was reportedly strict and, as later revealed, often abusive. Gary Crosby's memoir, Going My Own Way, published in 1983, provided a candid and harrowing account of life within the Crosby household. Gary detailed how his father disciplined his sons with physical punishment, including beatings with a belt. This harsh treatment left deep emotional scars on the Crosby children, shaping their relationships with their father and each other for years to come. The impact of Crosby's parenting became tragically evident in the lives of 2 of his sons. Dennis Crosby, struggling with personal demons, died in 1991 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Lindsay Crosby, haunted by his family's reputation and facing his own challenges, died in 1989 under circumstances that suggested suicide. These deaths underscored the profound and lasting effects of Crosby's troubled and evil parenting style. Bette Davis. Bette Davis, born Ruth Elizabeth Davis on April 5, 1908 in Lowell, Massachusetts, is celebrated as one of the most formidable actresses of Hollywood's golden age. Renowned for her unparalleled talent and intense performances on screen, Davis's off-screen persona was equally powerful and complex. Davis was notorious for her strong-willed personality and fierce independence, traits that often put her at odds with studio executives and directors. Throughout her career, she clashed with Hollywood's hierarchy, asserting her creative vision and refusing to compromise on her principles. Her insistence on controlling her career path and roles sometimes led to confrontations and disagreements that became legendary in Hollywood lore. One example of Davis's combative nature was her infamous feud with Joan Crawford during the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962. The rivalry between the 2 actresses, stemming from personal and professional differences, intensified on set and added a palpable tension to their performances. Their animosity was well documented and became a focal point of media attention at the time. Davis's relationships with co-stars were often colored by her assertiveness and willingness to challenge others. She was known for her strong opinions and high expectations, which could create friction during production. Her desire to fully embody her characters sometimes required pushing boundaries and demanding excellence from herself and those around her. Despite any conflicts behind the scenes, Davis's commitment to her craft was unwavering. Her performances in iconic films such as All About Eve, 1950, where she played the sharp-tongued Margot Channing, and Jezebel, 1938, which earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress, showcased her ability to portray complex, multidimensional women who defied conventions. Errol Flynn. Born on June 20, 1909 in Tasmania, Australia, Flynn became a Hollywood icon during the golden age of cinema. Known for his charismatic screen presence and swashbuckling roles in films like Captain Blood, 1935, and The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, Flynn projected an image of daring adventure and charm that captivated audiences worldwide. However, behind the silver screen, Flynn's personal life was marked by controversies and scandals that earned him a reputation for being morally questionable or evil. One of the primary reasons for Flynn's controversial reputation was his involvement in legal troubles, particularly allegations of statutory rape. In 1942, Flynn was accused of statutory rape by 2 teenage girls, leading to a highly publicized trial that tarnished his image. Despite being acquitted due to lack of evidence, the accusations cast a shadow over his career and raised questions about his conduct with women off-screen. Flynn's personal life was also characterized by a hedonistic lifestyle. He was known for his excessive drinking, womanizing, and indulgence in various vices, which contributed to his image as a Hollywood playboy. His parties were legendary for their extravagance, and he had numerous affairs with actresses, socialites, and other women, which fueled gossip and controversy throughout his career. Barbara Stanwyck. Born in Brooklyn, New York as Ruby Catherine Stevens on July 16, 1907, Barbara lived a life filled with drive and determination. Orphaned at a young age, she was raised in foster homes and by an elder sister. These early hardships forged a character that would become synonymous with strength and independence in Hollywood. Stanwyck's journey to stardom began in the nightclubs and theaters of New York, where she worked as a chorus girl. Her big break came in 1927 with the Broadway play Burlesque, a role that caught the attention of Hollywood scouts. By the late 1920s, she had moved to Hollywood and made her film debut in Broadway Nights. As the film industry transitioned from silent films to talkies, Stanwyck quickly established herself as a leading lady, thanks to her versatility and compelling performances. Despite her success, Stanwyck's off-screen reputation was complex. She was known for her professionalism and dedication to her craft, traits that sometimes led to perceptions of her being difficult or cold. Her intense focus on her career often took precedence over personal relationships, creating an aura of ruthlessness. Colleagues frequently described her as demanding and uncompromising, particularly when it came to her work. This relentless drive was evident in films like Stella Dallas, 1937, where her performance earned her an Academy Award nomination. Her commitment to her roles was unwavering, setting high standards for herself and those around her. While this dedication garnered respect, it also created tensions with co-stars and directors who found her formidable presence challenging. In the glimmering world of Hollywood, where the silver screen casts its spell over millions, there exists a darker tale, a tale that doesn't make it to the headlines but circulates in hushed whispers among those who walk the red carpets and those who merely dream of it. This is not a story of glamour or the American dream realized. It's a story of the 17 biggest jerks of Hollywood's golden era. These are the actors and actresses who, despite their undeniable talent and fame, had a knack for making life difficult for those around them. As you delve into these chapters, you'll find that each actor's story is a world unto itself, a world filled with ego, betrayal, and sometimes outright cruelty. But why focus on the negative, you might ask? Because it's often in the shadows that we find the most truth. These stories serve as cautionary tales, a behind-the-scenes look at what happens when fame, money, and unchecked ego collide. So let's pull back the curtain and take a closer look. Our first chapter will introduce you to a man who was as famous for his on-screen charm as he was infamous for his off-screen antics. A man whose smile could light up a room, but whose temperament could just as easily darken it. Are you intrigued? Good. Clark Gable was a king on screen, but was he a tyrant behind the scenes? The man who made hearts flutter as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind had a charisma that was undeniable. His square jaw, twinkling eyes, and that iconic mustache made him the epitome of Hollywood masculinity. But off-screen, the king of Hollywood had a reputation that was less than regal. Gable was known for his womanizing ways, a trait that led to multiple marriages and affairs. His relationship with Carole Lombard was the stuff of legends, but even that had its rocky moments. Lombard, known for her spunky personality, was one of the few who could handle Gable's strong character, but she wasn't the first or last to be charmed and subsequently hurt by him. His co-stars often had mixed feelings about working with him. Vivian Leigh, who played Scarlett O'Hara opposite Gable's Rhett Butler, found him irresistible but also incredibly intimidating. He had a way of owning the room, and while that worked wonders on screen, it could make for a tense atmosphere behind the scenes. Gable was also known for his lack of patience with directors and crew members. His ego was as big as his talent, and he wasn't afraid to let people know when he was displeased. This led to several on-set conflicts, most notably with director Victor Fleming during the filming of Gone with the Wind. Gable's temper was infamous, and it wasn't uncommon for him to storm off set if things didn't go his way. But despite his flaws, Gable had a magnetic allure that couldn't be ignored. He was a complicated man, full of contradictions. He could be incredibly charming one moment and infuriating the next. Yet, it was this complexity that made him human and, in a strange way, even more captivating. So, was Clark Gable a king or a tyrant? Perhaps he was a bit of both. But one thing is certain. His legacy as one of Hollywood's greatest actors is indisputable, even if the man behind the legend was far from perfect. Joan Crawford, born Lucille Fay LeSueur, was a Hollywood icon whose career spanned decades from the silent era to the golden age of cinema. She won an Academy Award for her role in Mildred Pierce and was known for her beauty, talent, and ambition. However, her legacy is also marred by the infamous portrayal of her as a cruel and abusive mother in the memoir Mommy Dearest, written by her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford. The book, published in 1978, painted a disturbing picture of Crawford as a controlling, alcoholic mother who emotionally and physically abused her children. The memoir was later adapted into a film starring Faye Dunaway, further cementing this negative image of Crawford in the public's mind. Scenes like the No Wire Hangers episode became cultural touchstones, often overshadowing Crawford's cinematic achievements. Christina Crawford's account has been both supported and disputed. Some of Crawford's friends and colleagues, like actress Myrna Loy, defended her, stating that they never witnessed any abusive behavior. However, others, like actor Cliff Robertson, claimed that Crawford had a Jekyll and Hyde personality capable of both kindness and cruelty. Crawford's relationship with her other children was also complicated. Her adopted son, Christopher, corroborated Christina's accounts of abuse, while her twin daughters, Kathy and Cindy, defended their mother, stating they never experienced any mistreatment. The actress herself was a product of a difficult upbringing, born to a teenage mother and an absent father. She was sexually abused by her stepfather and worked menial jobs before making it in Hollywood. Some speculate that her own traumas may have influenced her parenting style. Despite the controversies, Crawford's contributions to film cannot be denied. She was a founding member of the Screen Actors Guild and was known for her philanthropic efforts, including donations to educational institutions and hospitals. In the end, Joan Crawford remains an enigmatic figure. Her life was a blend of triumphs and tragedies, and she was both a victim and, allegedly, a perpetrator. The question remains, was Joan Crawford the monster that Mommy Dearest portrayed her to be, or was she a complex woman shaped by the highs and lows of an extraordinary life? Bette Davis. The two-time Academy Award-winning actress was known for her strong, independent roles and her equally strong personality. Her eyes were the subject of a hit song, and her acting prowess was the stuff of legend. However, Davis was not without her flaws, and her reputation for being difficult to work with was well known in Hollywood circles. Davis had a penchant for speaking her mind, regardless of the consequences. While this forthrightness was often celebrated, it also made her many enemies. She was notorious for her feuds with studio executives, directors, and co-stars. Her most famous feud was with Joan Crawford, her co-star in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The animosity between the two was so intense that it became the stuff of Hollywood legend. Davis once quipped about Crawford, "She slept with every male star at MGM except Lassie. Her sharp tongue wasn't reserved for just her enemies. Even her friends and family were not immune." Davis was married 4 times, and each marriage ended in divorce. Her relationship with her daughter, B.D. Hyman, was so strained that Hyman wrote a scathing memoir about her mother, describing Davis as controlling and emotionally abusive. Davis was also known for her diva-like behavior on set. She had specific demands about lighting to showcase her famous eyes, and often clashed with directors who didn't meet her standards. During the filming of All About Eve, it was rumored that she had a contentious relationship with her co-star, Ann Baxter, and was not above scene stealing to ensure she remained the center of attention. Moreover, Davis had a reputation for being a career-first woman, often at the expense of her personal relationships. Her ambition led her to take roles that others turned down and to work with people she despised. While this drive made her a star, it also made her isolated, as many in the industry found her too challenging to deal with. While Bette Davis is undoubtedly one of the greatest actresses in the history of cinema, her off-screen persona was far more complicated. Her wit and intelligence, so captivating on screen, could turn cutting and cruel in real life. She was a woman who defied conventions and broke barriers, but in doing so, she left a trail of broken relationships and bruised egos. Humphrey Bogart. The man who gave us iconic roles like Rick Blaine in Casablanca and Sam Spade in The Maltese Falcon was as tough off-screen as he was in his films. However, this toughness sometimes manifested as outright rudeness and a lack of consideration for others. Bogart was known for his heavy drinking, a habit that often led to unpredictable and aggressive behavior. During a party at Frank Sinatra's house, a drunken Bogart reportedly became belligerent, insulting several guests and causing a scene. Sinatra had to intervene and escort him out, damaging their friendship for a time. His relationship with his third wife, Mayo Method, was notoriously volatile, fueled by both parties' alcoholism. The couple was known in Hollywood circles as the Battling Bogarts due to their frequent public fights. On one occasion, Bogart even threw Method off a boat into the water during an argument, an act that was both dangerous and humiliating for her. Bogart also had a contentious relationship with the press. He was known to be curt and dismissive with reporters, often giving sarcastic and cutting responses to their questions. During a press conference for In a Lonely Place, he berated a reporter for asking what he considered to be a stupid question, causing an awkward tension in the room. Even his friendships were not immune to his abrasive behavior. Despite a close friendship with Casablanca co-star Claude Rains, Bogart once publicly embarrassed him during a dinner party by making fun of Rains's English accent and theatrical mannerisms, leaving Rains visibly upset. Furthermore, Bogart was not above using his star power to belittle others. During the filming of Key Largo, he clashed with director John Huston over creative differences. Bogart, unhappy with Huston's direction, openly criticized him in front of the crew, undermining Huston's authority on his own set. Judy Garland. The star of The Wizard of Oz is often remembered for her angelic voice and tragic life story. However, like many stars, Garland had moments where she was far from the darling the public adored. Her life was a roller coaster of ups and downs, and during the lows, she was known to lash out at those around her. Garland's tumultuous relationship with her mother, Ethel Gum, was well documented. Ethel was a stage mother who pushed Garland into the limelight at a young age. However, Garland often blamed her mother for her own struggles with addiction and mental health, going so far as to publicly call her a monster in interviews. While Ethel was far from perfect, Garland's public vilification of her added fuel to an already complicated relationship. On set, Garland could be equally difficult. During the filming of A Star is Born, she was frequently late, causing delays that cost the production thousands of dollars. Her behavior was often erratic due to her dependence on prescription medication, leading to mood swings that made her difficult to work with. She was known to snap at crew members and even threw a cup of coffee at director George Cukor in a fit of rage. Her marriages were also fraught with tension. Garland's third husband, Sid Luft, claimed that she tried to attack him with a kitchen knife during an argument. While Luft was no saint himself, this incident showed a volatile side to Garland that the public rarely saw. Garland's relationship with her children was complicated as well. Lorna Luft, her daughter, wrote in her memoir that Garland could be emotionally manipulative. She would often pit her children against each other and against their fathers, using them as pawns in her own emotional games. Even her friendships were not immune to her darker tendencies. Garland had a falling out with several close friends, including Frank Sinatra, whom she accused of exploiting her vulnerabilities for his own gain. Whether this was true or not, it showed a tendency to burn bridges and alienate those who cared for her. John Wayne, the iconic American actor known for his roles in westerns, is often seen as a symbol of rugged individualism and moral clarity. However, Wayne's off-screen persona was not always as admirable as the characters he portrayed. His public and private actions revealed a man who could be insensitive, prejudiced, and downright rude. One of the most glaring examples of Wayne's less-than-heroic behavior was his stance on race and civil rights. In a 1971 interview with Playboy magazine, Wayne made a series of racially insensitive comments, including stating that he believed in white supremacy. These comments were not only shocking, but also revealed a deep-seated prejudice that was hard to reconcile with his public image. Wayne's relationships with women were also problematic. Despite being married 3 times, he was known to be a serial philanderer. His affairs were not just a breach of trust, but also a form of emotional manipulation, as he would often pit women against each other, reveling in the drama it caused. On set, Wayne was known for his authoritarian tendencies. He often clashed with directors and co-stars who did not share his political views or who questioned his authority. During the filming of The Green Berets, Wayne's strong support for the Vietnam War created tension on set. He was dismissive of anyone who opposed the war, labeling them as unpatriotic, and this extended to his interactions with crew members, some of whom were drafted to fight in Vietnam. His relationship with his children was also complex. Ethan Wayne, his son, revealed in interviews that while Wayne was a loving father, he was also a strict disciplinarian who did not tolerate dissent. This authoritarian approach to parenting often led to strained relationships with his children, especially as they grew older and developed their own views. Wayne's friendships were not immune to his abrasive behavior. He had a long-standing friendship with actor Ward Bond, but the friendship ended abruptly when Bond expressed support for the civil rights movement. Wayne saw this as a betrayal and cut off all contact with Bond despite years of close friendship. Marlene Dietrich. The German-American actress and singer was a symbol of elegance, beauty, and sexual ambiguity. Her roles in films like The Blue Angel and Morocco made her an international star. However, behind the scenes, Dietrich had a reputation for being difficult to work with and was known for her sharp tongue and dismissive attitude. One of the most talked about aspects of Dietrich's life was her numerous affairs, both with men and women. While her open sexuality was revolutionary for the time, the way she conducted her relationships was often less than admirable. She had affairs with co-stars, directors, and even military officers during World War II, often regardless of their marital status. This cavalier attitude towards relationships often led to broken homes and strained friendships. Dietrich was also known for her diva-like behavior on set. She was extremely particular about lighting and camera angles, often clashing with directors and cinematographers to get her way. While some saw this as a sign of her commitment to her craft, others viewed it as egotistical and self-centered. Her demands were not limited to her professional life. She was known to be equally demanding in her personal relationships, often requiring extravagant gifts and constant attention. Her relationship with her daughter Maria Riva was fraught with tension. Dietrich was often absent, both emotionally and physically, as she prioritized her career over her family. Maria wrote in her memoir that her mother was manipulative and controlling, often using emotional blackmail to get her way. This strained relationship was indicative of Dietrich's general approach to personal relationships, which often took a back seat to her career and desires. In her later years, Dietrich became increasingly isolated. Her diva-like behavior had burned many bridges in Hollywood, and her waning popularity made her even more difficult to work with. She spent the last decade of her life in seclusion in Paris, rarely seen in public, and refusing most interviews. This self-imposed exile was perhaps the ultimate expression of her complex personality, a blend of glamour and vulnerability, kindness and cruelty. Ava Gardner. The sultry Hollywood starlet was the epitome of beauty and grace on screen. However, behind the scenes, she had a reputation for being difficult to work with and had a penchant for stirring up drama. While her talent was undeniable, her behavior often left much to be desired. One of the most talked about incidents was her tumultuous relationship with Frank Sinatra. While Sinatra was head over heels for Gardner, she seemed to relish the power she had over him. She was known to be openly flirtatious with other men, just to get a rise out of Sinatra. This emotional manipulation took a toll on Sinatra, affecting both his personal life and career. Gardner was also notorious for her diva-like behavior on set. She had a habit of showing up late, keeping entire productions waiting, and then acting as if nothing was wrong. Her lack of professionalism didn't end there. She was known to be rude to crew members and even fellow actors. During the filming of The Sun Also Rises, she reportedly clashed with Ernest Hemingway, who was not pleased with her interpretation of his character, Lady Brett Ashley. Gardner dismissed his concerns, stating that she knew better how to portray a woman. Her love for alcohol was no secret, and it often exacerbated her erratic behavior. She was known to throw fits when things didn't go her way, and her mood could switch from charming to irate in a matter of seconds. This volatility made her unpredictable, adding stress to an already high-pressure environment. While Ava Gardner's on-screen presence captivated millions, Those who knew her personally were often subjected to her less-than-stellar behavior. Her actions serve as a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful faces can hide the most complicated personalities. Vivien Leigh Best, known for her iconic roles in Gone with the Wind and A Streetcar Named Desire, was a force to be reckoned with on screen. However, off-screen, she was often a challenging person to deal with. Her beauty and talent were undeniable, but they came with a side of arrogance and a sharp tongue that could cut like a knife. Leigh was known for her intense dedication to her craft, but this often translated into a demanding and sometimes cruel demeanor on set. She was notorious for insisting on multiple takes, even when everyone else was satisfied, pushing her co-stars and crew to the brink of exhaustion. Her perfectionism often crossed the line into outright rudeness. Her relationship with Laurence Olivier, one of the greatest actors of his time, was tumultuous at best. While their love story is often romanticized, the reality was far from perfect. Leigh was known to be possessive and jealous, often accusing Olivier of infidelity without basis. Her insecurities fueled many heated arguments between the couple, making their home life far from peaceful. Leigh also had a reputation for being snobbish and elitist. She often looked down on people she considered to be below her, whether in terms of social status or talent. This attitude didn't win her many friends in Hollywood, a place where egos are already inflated and tensions run high. Adding to her complicated personality was her struggle with bipolar disorder, which was not well understood at the time. While this condition likely contributed to her erratic behavior, it doesn't entirely excuse the way she treated people. Many who worked with her felt that she used her mental health struggles as a license to mistreat others. Cary Grant. He had a public persona that was almost too good to be true, and in many ways, it was. While he dazzled audiences with his good looks and effortless charisma, those who knew him personally were often subjected to a different side of him, a side that was far from charming. Grant was known for his controlling tendencies, especially in his romantic relationships. His marriage to actress Diane Cannon serves as a prime example. According to Cannon, Grant was emotionally abusive and tried to control every aspect of her life, from what she wore to who she talked to. His controlling behavior was so severe that it led to the end of their marriage and left emotional scars that took years to heal. His colleagues didn't escape his difficult personality either. During the filming of His Girl Friday, it's said that he demanded to be filmed from specific angles to showcase his good side, much to the annoyance of the crew and even the director, Howard Hawks. His vanity was well known in the industry, and he wasn't above making life difficult for others to maintain his image. Grant was also known for his frugality, which often bordered on stinginess. Despite being one of the highest-paid actors of his time, he was notorious for avoiding picking up the check at dinners and even charged fans for autographs. This behavior was in stark contrast to the generous and affable image he portrayed on screen. Moreover, Grant had a complicated relationship with his own identity. Born Archibald Leach in Bristol, England, he went to great lengths to distance himself from his working-class background, including changing his accent and even his name. Those who reminded him of his past or questioned his carefully crafted image were met with hostility. While Cary Grant's on-screen persona made him a Hollywood legend, his off-screen behavior revealed a complex and often difficult man. His story serves as a cautionary tale that behind the most charming smiles can lie a host of insecurities and dark tendencies. Frank Sinatra, also known as Ol' Blue Eyes, was a titan in the entertainment industry. With a career spanning 6 decades, he left an indelible mark on music, film, and television. However, Sinatra was not just known for his velvety voice and charismatic stage presence. He was also infamous for his volatile temper and sometimes abrasive behavior. One of the most talked about aspects of Sinatra's personality was his association with the Rat Pack, a group of entertainers known for their hard-partying lifestyle. While the Rat Pack's antics were often seen as charming, Sinatra's role as the unofficial leader sometimes took a darker turn. He was known to be controlling and would often berate members who didn't toe the line, leading to strained relationships within the group. Sinatra's temper wasn't just reserved for his friends. It extended to his professional life as well. He was notorious for clashing with directors, producers, and even fellow actors. During the filming of From Here to Eternity, it's said that he got into heated arguments with the director, Fred Zinnemann, demanding that scenes be shot his way. His behavior was considered so problematic that many studios were hesitant to work with him, despite his immense talent. His relationships with women were also a point of contention. Sinatra was married 4 times, and his affairs were numerous. His marriage to Ava Gardner was particularly tumultuous, marked by explosive arguments and alleged infidelity on both sides. Sinatra's treatment of women in his life often raised eyebrows, as he was known to be possessive and jealous, traits that didn't sit well with many. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of Sinatra's life was his alleged ties to organized crime. While never proven, these connections have been widely reported and discussed, adding a layer of menace to his already complex personality. His friendships with figures known to be involved in criminal activities did little to dispel these rumors. In public settings, Sinatra was known to lose his temper with fans and even journalists. There are numerous accounts of him lashing out at people who he felt had crossed a line, whether it was a fan approaching him at an inopportune moment or a journalist asking a question he didn't like. Despite these flaws, Sinatra's contributions to music and film are undeniable. He remains an icon, but like many icons, his legacy is a complicated one, filled with moments of brilliance and instances of behavior that were less than admirable. In the end, Sinatra was a man of contrasts, capable of immense kindness but also prone to bouts of anger and pettiness, making him a fascinating, if flawed, figure in the annals of entertainment history.
Movies are where regular people escape for a few hours. We've idolized movie stars for over a century. They're people we want to be and people we want to be with. But we should all remember that what happens behind the scenes can be far more shocking. It's worse than what makes it onto the screen. Faye Dunaway. Many people have had the chance to work with her. They say that actress Faye Dunaway is quite the challenge. This is true both on and off the set. People compare her to her iconic role as Bonnie in Bonnie and Clyde. She often acts entitled, especially to service staff. Her attitude is linked to her fame. An airline steward shared one anecdote with the New York Post. It recounts an incident at JFK Airport where Dunaway caused a scene. He demanded an upgrade. He exclaimed, "Do you know who I am?" Such incidents show her belief in special treatment based only on her fame. Her on-set antics have also earned her a notorious reputation. During the filming of Chinatown, rumors circulated. They said she once threw a cup of urine at director Roman Polanski. She did it because he refused her a bathroom break. Zan Brooks from The Guardian asked about this incident. Dunaway promptly shut down the interview. She said, "I'm a lady, and you were completely insulting." Polanski himself has said that Dunaway's behavior on the set of Mommy Dearest was proof of insanity. He said her erratic actions drove staff members to quit. It seems there are touchy subjects one must avoid around Dunaway. Her reactions can be unpredictable. Despite the passage of time, Dunaway's temperament shows no signs of mellowing with age. She continues to make headlines for her outbursts. They are for photographers, journalists, and anyone she sees as disrespecting her dignity. Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby was the renowned crooner of Hollywood's golden era, but he had a dark secret that contradicted his wholesome public image. His eldest son, Gary, shattered the facade of familial harmony with his revelatory 1983 biography, Going My Own Way. In the pages of this tell-all exposé, Gary painted a disturbing picture of his father's discipline. He alleged that Crosby used a studded leather belt and stern lectures to enforce obedience. Even Gary was not spared from his father's harsh discipline. He was punished for his siblings' misdeeds. Yet the extent of Crosby's cruelty extended beyond mere physical punishment. Shocking accounts emerged. Housekeepers were giving the drowning treatment to children. They did this in the bathtub. They did this as a punishment for minor infractions. The infractions included talking in bed or rising too early. These chilling revelations shed light on the oppressive atmosphere in the Crosby household. It left a lasting scar on his children's minds. Sadly, Crosby's harsh parenting was made worse by personal tragedies. 2 of his children succumbed to the depths of depression and ultimately took their own lives, underscoring the devastating toll of their upbringing. Even Crosby's work relationships also had strain. Despite their on-screen chemistry in 7 road movies, Crosby's rapport with co-star Bob Hope was not good. In a candid admission, Hope revealed to a confidant his disdain for Crosby, stating plainly that he neither liked nor respected him. This revelation peeled back the curtain on the discord that simmered beneath the surface of their public personas, challenging the perception of camaraderie cultivated by their on-screen collaborations. Gene Kelly. The iconic dancer whose smooth moves and magnetic presence lit up the silver screen, Gene Kelly was revered as a paragon of talent and charm. His performances in countless musical classics earned him adoration from audiences worldwide, cementing his status as a beloved Hollywood icon. However, behind the glitz and glamour of his on-screen persona lay a dark and troubling reality. Shocking allegations emerged regarding Kelly's behavior off-camera, painting a starkly different portrait of the celebrated entertainer. One chilling incident cast a shadow over Kelly's reputation when the talented dancer and actress Sid Charisse returned home from the MGM lot bearing visible bruises. The revelation sparked widespread speculation and concern, with fingers pointed at Kelly as the perpetrator of the alleged abuse. The notion of Kelly, the epitome of grace and charm, being accused of such heinous acts sent shockwaves through Hollywood. But the allegations didn't stop there. Rumors swirled of Kelly's involvement in secret and controversial activities, including an alleged meeting where he purportedly handed a substantial sum to IRA leader Cahal Golding during an underground fundraising mission in the USA. The shocking claim, coupled with reports of Kelly's purported declaration that the money was intended for firearms rather than humanitarian efforts, further tarnished his image and raised troubling questions about his character. However, in the aftermath of these revelations, Kelly's widow, Patricia Kelly, vehemently denied the accusations of violence and wrongdoing, offering a staunch defense of her late husband's character. Despite her efforts to refute the claims, the specter of doubt lingered, leaving a lingering sense of unease and uncertainty surrounding Kelly's legacy. The juxtaposition of Gene Kelly, the beloved entertainer, with the disturbing allegations of abuse and controversy, serves as a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature and the often hidden truths behind the facade of fame. As the debate rages on, the true extent of Kelly's legacy remains a subject of contentious debate, leaving an indelible mark on his storied career and the annals of Hollywood history. Zsa Zsa Gabor. She had undeniable beauty that shone like a dazzling star, the epitome in glamour and class, and a true icon whose fame stretched far and wide. Yet behind the facade of Hollywood stardom lurked a darker reality that belied her glamorous image. While Zsa Gabor dazzled on-screen and off-camera, she often revealed a side of herself that few of her adoring fans would recognize. Described as unpleasant, mean, and selfish by those who knew her intimately, Gabor seemed to inhabit a dual personality, concealing her true nature behind a veil of elegance and charm. Gabor's career was remarkable, yet many of her friends were unhappy with her, comparing her to the Kardashians. However, her relationship with her daughter, Francesca Hilton, showed her true cruel and selfish nature. Francesca wanted to follow her own path, which differed from her mother's hopes. Gabor, who used to control everything in her daughter's life, disliked Francesca's independence. She then actively blocked Francesca's dreams. The situation escalated following the demise of Gabor's husband and Francesca's father, Conrad Hilton. Seeing an opportunity to secure her own financial interests, Gabor callously manipulated the inheritance, leaving Francesca with a pittance while she retained the lion's share of the family wealth. What ensued was a bitter legal battle between mother and daughter, with Francesca fighting tirelessly for her rightful inheritance. Despite Francesca's efforts, Gabor remained unmoved by her daughter's plight, showing no remorse for her actions. Sadly, Francesca's fight for justice left her poor and isolated. Meanwhile, Gabor enjoyed a luxurious life. This stark contrast highlighted Gabor's coldness and neglect towards her family. Greta Garbo. Step into the enigmatic world of Greta Garbo, the ethereal Hollywood icon whose beauty and talent captivated audiences and left an indelible mark on the silver screen. Garbo's allure was unparalleled, her presence imbued with a mysterious aura that set her apart from her contemporaries. But behind the glamour and allure lay a woman who prized privacy above all else, elevating the concept of reclusiveness to an art form. Garbo eschewed interviews and public appearances with a skillful finesse, cultivating an air of enigma that only served to deepen the fascination surrounding her persona. For directors fortunate enough to cast Garbo in their films, the experience was both exhilarating and daunting. She had star power, But her aversion to the press spilled over to the set. It created an invisible barrier. This barrier made it hard to connect with her personally. Directors found themselves grappling with this enigmatic puzzle, navigating the complexities of working with a star who remained elusive and inscrutable. Garbo's aversion to publicity became a defining characteristic, a hallmark of her persona that left many in Hollywood perplexed and intrigued. She did not like to engage in idle chatter or superficial interactions. This only added to her mystique. It left industry insiders pondering the enigma that was Greta Garbo. Yet, amidst the speculation and curiosity, Garbo remained steadfast in her commitment to maintaining her privacy. Unfazed by the intrigue that surrounded her, she remained resolute in her resolve to guard her personal life fiercely, unaffected by the scrutiny of those who sought to unravel the mystery of her elusive nature. In the end, Greta Garbo's indifference to the opinions of others only added to her allure, cementing her status as one of Hollywood's most enigmatic and enduring legends. She retreated into seclusion. Her enigmatic presence kept casting a spell over audiences. It left an indelible legacy. This legacy crossed the boundaries of time and space. Milton Berle. The legendary comedian and entertainer Milton Berle left an indelible mark on the world of entertainment with his larger-than-life persona and comedic prowess. However, behind the glitz and glamour of his public image lay a darker reality, characterized by accusations of plagiarism and unprofessional behavior. Berle earned the name the Thief of Bad Gags. This was due to rumors that he stole jokes from other comedians. He did not give them credit. This reputation came to a head when RuPaul, the iconic drag queen and entertainer, publicly confronted Berle at the 1993 MTV Video Music Awards. RuPaul accused him of stealing jokes. Their on-camera and off-camera interactions were fraught with tension, culminating in a contentious exchange that soured their professional relationship and led to RuPaul severing ties with MTV. Berle's reputation for unprofessional conduct extended beyond his interactions with RuPaul. In 1979, when he guest-hosted NBC's Saturday Night Live, Berle's behavior during rehearsals was described as domineering and disruptive. He attempted to seize control of the entire show, upstaging his fellow cast members and recycling old comedy material to the detriment of the production. His actions were so egregious that they resulted in a lifetime ban from hosting Saturday Night Live. Despite efforts by Saturday Night Live producer Lorne Michaels to prevent the show from being rerun, copies of Berle's ill-fated episode resurfaced in 2003, serving as a reminder of the impact of Berle's jerk behavior on the work of others. His actions tarnished his reputation. They also disrupted the creative process and hurt his colleagues' efforts. In the case of Milton Berle, his legacy is tainted by allegations of joke theft and unprofessional conduct, serving as a cautionary tale of the consequences of ego-driven behavior in the world of entertainment. He may have been celebrated for his comedy, but Berle's actions remind us that success is not just about talent. It is also about integrity and respect for others in the industry. Lucille Ball. The iconic queen of comedy, Lucille Ball reshaped the landscape of television with her groundbreaking contributions to the modern sitcom. Her unparalleled talent and pioneering spirit shattered barriers and set new standards for what could be aired on television, earning her a place of honor in the annals of entertainment history. However, behind the scenes of her celebrated career, a different story unfolded. A tale of ambition, determination, and, according to some, a formidable and demanding presence. Despite her endearing on-screen persona, Lucille Ball was reputed to be a force to be reckoned with behind the scenes. Her co-star in the hit series The Lucy Show was Tony Randall. He famously remarked on her assertive nature. He said that she bossed everybody around and didn't spare anybody's feelings. This assertion painted a picture of Ball as a commanding figure who wielded significant influence on the set, leaving little room for dissent or deviation from her vision. In a harsh critique, actor Richard Burton was known for his candid demeanor. He described Ball as a charmless monster with no humor. He delivered the harsh assessment in 1979. It captured the essence of Ball's reputation as a demanding and uncompromising figure in entertainment. Burton's remark hinted at the intensity of Ball's personality and the challenges of working alongside her, suggesting that her demeanor could be so abrasive as to elicit extreme reactions from those in her orbit. The accounts of Ball's demanding nature behind the scenes stand in stark contrast to the beloved image of Lucy Ricardo, the lovable and bumbling character she portrayed on television. Jerry Lewis. was renowned for his amazing comedy and philanthropic endeavors. Jerry Lewis soared to incredible heights of fame and adoration. Yet, hidden beneath all of the laughter and applause, all the witty comedic lines and charming persona, Lewis was not all he presented himself to be. Later in his career, the truth about who he was reared its ugly head, and his fans were beyond mortified. His public image was marred by allegations of difficult behavior, disparaging comments, and controversial fundraising tactics. Despite his immense charitable contributions, Lewis's methods drew criticism, with some viewing his tactics as manipulative and exploitative. He dedicated countless hours to raising billions for muscular dystrophy research through his telethons. But his approach sparked debate and division in the public sphere. Most believed he was exploiting pity for those affected by the disease. But Lewis staunchly defended his actions, asserting that the end justified the means, but his unwavering stance only served to deepen the divide among his detractors. Amidst the turmoil of his public life, Lewis grappled with personal demons, including a well-documented addiction to painkillers. He relied on medication to cope with chronic pain. This mirrored the tragic trajectory of many comedic icons before him. It showed the toll of years of physical humor on his well-being. Despite attempts to seek help, Lewis struggled to break free from the grips of addiction, a battle that played out against the backdrop of his waning career and public scrutiny. Lewis's career took a downturn in the 1970s. This was after the controversy around his unreleased film, The Day the Clown Cried. This mirrored the decline in his health and public image. Additionally, his comments about women in comedy sparked controversy, with many criticizing his outdated views and dismissive attitude towards female comedians. Furthermore, Lewis feuded with comedian Joan Rivers. The feud started from an encounter on her show in 1968. The feud escalated over the years, culminating in public spats and Lewis's ominous threats towards Rivers, turning their once professional relationship into a spectacle of Hollywood drama. Bob Hope. Another comedian celebrated for his infectious smile and witty jokes, Bob Hope had a shadow of meanness lurking behind his famous persona. While adored by many for his comedy, whispers circulated about his sharp tongue and penchant for cutting remarks. Some who worked with him shared tales of his biting humor, leaving others feeling stung despite his charming demeanor on screen. It serves as a reminder that sometimes the brightest smiles can hide the darkest secrets. Hailed as the entertainer of the 20th century, Bob Hope dazzled audiences with his humor and charisma. Throughout his remarkable career, Hope showed versatility. He got nearly 100 acting credits, hosted the Academy Awards 19 times, and rose to fame in American stand-up comedy. Born Leslie Towns Hope in 1903, he began his journey as a vaudeville performer before making his mark in Hollywood. But here's where it gets interesting. Hope's partnership with Bing Crosby in the golden age of Hollywood sparked laughter and joy on the silver screen. This was especially true in the beloved Road 2 movies. Their chemistry was rooted in their vaudeville background. It endeared them to audiences worldwide. But all that was just a facade. Behind the scenes, reports emerged of rivalry and scandal. They included soap suds fights and backstage antics. This was much to the dismay of directors and crew. One notable scandal involved Dolores Reed, a captivating beauty who allegedly bewitched Hope during his marriage to another woman. Hope claimed to have married Dolores months before his divorce, earning him the title of America's beloved bigamist. Despite the drama, Hope's legacy endured, cementing his status as an iconic figure in American popular culture. Bob Hope's contributions to entertainment were vast and varied, spanning from hosting the Academy Awards to starring in numerous movies. He passed away in 2003 at the age of 100, leaving behind a lasting legacy that continues to resonate in the world of entertainment. Charlie Sheen. Known for his beloved character as Charlie Harper, the fun-loving alcoholic portrayed on the hit sitcom 2.5 Men was not only a beloved character, but also the highest-paid actor on television during his time on the show. However, his descent into erratic behavior off-screen led to his abrupt dismissal from the series. As his real-life actions grew increasingly unpredictable, he found himself embroiled in controversy, ultimately resulting in his termination. Publicly insulting the show's producer, Chuck Lorre, was just one instance of his erratic behavior. Moreover, he made audacious claims, boasting about having tiger blood coursing through his veins, further adding to his enigmatic persona. Beyond his on-screen persona, he became notorious for his destructive tendencies. He battled drug addiction and feuded with other celebrities and ex-partners. His fall from grace was swift and severe, leaving him struggling to regain his footing in the industry. Despite numerous attempts at redemption, he has yet to fully recover from the repercussions of his tumultuous past, marking a challenging journey fraught with obstacles and setbacks. William Shatner. Widely celebrated for his indelible portrayal of Captain James T. Kirk in the original Star Trek series, William Shatner has left an indelible mark on both science fiction and pop culture. However, alongside admiration, Shatner's career has been peppered with controversy and criticism. Fans laud his genre contributions, but Shatner has faced scrutiny for his ego and treatment of colleagues. Reports of his demanding demeanor on set and clashes with co-stars have surfaced, painting a picture of him as occasionally difficult to work with. His outspoken nature and occasional public feuds with fellow actors have only added fuel to the perception of him as one of Hollywood's more challenging personalities. Despite these controversies, Shatner remains a beloved figure in entertainment. He is revered for his iconic portrayal and lasting impact on science fiction. His portrayal of Captain Kirk continues to inspire generations of fans, solidifying his place in the annals of television history. Chevy Chase. It's regrettable to admit that Chevy Chase's public persona doesn't quite align with reality. Despite his efforts to present himself as a lovable and comedic figure, numerous reports suggest otherwise. Chase has garnered a reputation for being far from affable, with accounts of his behavior painting him as anything but charming. Even his colleagues from Saturday Night Live have openly expressed their disdain for him, citing his rude behavior while hosting the show. Sadly, Chase's negative reputation has followed him throughout his entire career, leaving a trail of disgruntled colleagues and disappointed fans in his wake. Disturbingly, there have been instances where he's made lewd remarks toward female writers, showcasing a blatant lack of respect for those who contribute to his work behind the scenes. His actions around those who work for him show a sense of entitlement and insensitivity to the hours of work they put in. Moreover, Chase's aversion to politeness extends beyond interactions with colleagues to include fans as well. His unwillingness to extend basic courtesy to others has undoubtedly tarnished his image. This behavior eventually led to his departure from NBC's hit show Community due to similar on-set issues. At this juncture, it seems unlikely that Chase will change his ways. He is unwilling to adapt or show remorse. This suggests a deep-seated attitude problem. It may persist forever.
In the golden era of Hollywood, a lavish party was in full swing at the grand Beverly Hills home of Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling hero of the silver screen. The year was 1940, and Flynn, at the height of his fame, was known as much for his off-screen escapades as for his on-screen adventures. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the sound of clinking glasses as Hollywood's elite mingled under the starlit sky. But beneath the surface of this glittering spectacle lay a darker side to the charismatic actor. Flynn, with a drink in one hand and a mischievous glint in his eye, was the life of the party. However, his charm masked a penchant for trouble that often put him at odds with the law and the Hollywood establishment. On this particular night, as the party roared on, Flynn's behavior took a turn that would add yet another scandalous chapter to his already notorious reputation. As the story goes, Flynn, in a moment of drunken bravado, decided to play a prank on a fellow actor, a prank that would later be recounted in hushed tones among the Hollywood circles. He had smuggled a live tiger into the party, a wild and dangerous stunt that sent guests into a frenzy. The tiger, bewildered and scared, roamed the lavish halls, causing chaos and panic among the glamorous crowd. Flynn's laughter echoed through the mansion as he watched the spectacle unfold, seemingly oblivious to the danger and distress he had caused. This incident was emblematic of Flynn's approach to life, reckless, daring, and often crossing the line of decency. His actions that night were not just a display of poor judgment, they were a reflection of a deeper disregard for the consequences of his actions. Flynn's life was a series of such escapades, each more outrageous than the last, painting a picture of a man who lived by his own rules, regardless of the cost to himself or others. Flynn's behavior was often excused as the eccentricities of a genius, his charm and talent overshadowing his indiscretions, but to those who bore the brunt of his actions, he was a man whose charisma could quickly turn into callousness. His antics, though often dismissed as the follies of a Hollywood star, were indicative of a troubling pattern of behavior.
As the night wore on and the party guests recovered from their initial shock, the incident with the tiger became yet another tale to be told about Errol Flynn, the charming rogue of Hollywood. But for those who looked closer, it was a stark reminder of the darker side of fame, a world where excess and arrogance were often mistaken for charm and charisma. This story of Flynn and his tiger is just one of many that illustrate the complex and often troubling nature of some of Hollywood's most iconic figures. As we delve deeper into the lives of these stars, we uncover a world where the glitz and glamour of the silver screen often mask the more troubling aspects of fame and fortune. From Flynn's wild escapades to the fiery temperament of Shelley Winters, the golden era of Hollywood was as much about the drama off-screen as it was about the stories told on it. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling rebel. Born in Tasmania in 1909, Flynn's journey to Hollywood stardom was marked by a series of escapades that foreshadowed his future reputation. His early years were spent in Australia and Papua New Guinea, where he was known for his rebellious nature and love for adventure, traits that would later define his persona both on and off the screen. Flynn's arrival in Hollywood in the early 1930s was the beginning of a career that would make him one of the most iconic figures of the golden age of cinema. His breakthrough role in Captain Blood, 1935, catapulted him to stardom, and he quickly became synonymous with the roles of charming and daring heroes. However, it was his off-screen life that often captured the public's imagination just as much as his on-screen exploits. Flynn's Hollywood was a place of excess and extravagance, and he embraced this lifestyle wholeheartedly. He was known for his lavish parties, which were legendary for their opulence and the debauchery that often ensued. Flynn's home, Mulholland Farm, became a symbol of his extravagant lifestyle, a place where Hollywood's elite would gather to indulge in the hedonistic pleasures of the era. But Flynn's life was not just about parties and glamour. He was also known for his tumultuous personal life, including a string of high-profile romances and marriages. His relationships were often the subject of tabloid gossip, adding to his reputation as a Hollywood playboy. However, it was his trial for statutory rape in 1942 that brought his personal life into the public eye in a more serious and damaging way. Although he was acquitted, the trial tarnished his image and added a dark chapter to his story. Flynn's career in Hollywood was also marked by a constant struggle with the studios. He often clashed with studio executives over his roles and his desire for more creative control. His rebellious nature extended to his professional life, where he was not afraid to stand up to the powers that be, a trait that was both admired and frowned upon in the industry. Despite his personal and professional challenges, Flynn's talent and charisma kept him at the forefront of Hollywood. He continued to deliver memorable performances in films like The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, and The Seahawk, 1940. However, his lifestyle began to take a toll on his health. Flynn's later years were marked by a decline in his physical and mental well-being, exacerbated by years of alcohol and substance abuse. Errol Flynn's death in 1959 at the age of 50 was a tragic end to a life that had been lived in the fast lane. His legacy, however, lives on in the annals of Hollywood history. Flynn's life was a testament to the allure and dangers of stardom, a reminder of the thin line between the glamorous facade of Hollywood and the often tumultuous reality behind it. His story is one of talent, charm, and defiance, but also of excess, controversy, and the ultimate cost of fame. Tallulah Bankhead, Hollywood's wild card. With her husky voice, flamboyant personality, and unabashed approach to life, was a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood. Born into a prominent political family in Alabama in 1902, Bankhead's journey to stardom was as unconventional as her personality. She first made her mark on the New York stage before venturing into the world of Hollywood cinema. Bankhead's arrival in Hollywood in the 1930s was met with great anticipation. Known for her successful theater career, she brought a sense of sophistication and raw talent to the screen. However, it was her off-screen antics that often overshadowed her professional achievements. Bankhead was notorious for her wild parties, her quick wit, and her propensity for shocking the conservative sensibilities of the time. One of the most telling anecdotes of Bankhead's audacious nature occurred during the filming of Lifeboat, 1944, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Known for her disdain for wearing undergarments, Bankhead reportedly refused to wear any during the shoot, much to the discomfort of her co-stars and the crew. When a complaint was made, Hitchcock famously quipped that he didn't know if the issue was a matter for the costume department, hair and makeup, or props. This incident was emblematic of Bankhead's devil-may-care attitude and her refusal to conform to Hollywood norms. Bankhead's personal life was as colorful as her public persona. She was openly bisexual at a time when such things were kept private, and her romantic escapades were the subject of much gossip. Her relationships, often with prominent figures, added to her reputation as a Hollywood maverick. Bankhead never shied away from speaking her mind, and her sharp tongue was both feared and admired in the industry. Despite her talent, Bankhead's film career never reached the heights of her stage success. She often clashed with studio executives and directors, and her unrestrained lifestyle led to reliability issues on set. Her outspoken nature and refusal to play by the rules made her a controversial figure in the industry. Bankhead's health suffered due to her excessive lifestyle, particularly her heavy smoking and drinking. These habits took a toll on her career and her well-being, leading to a decline in her health in her later years. Despite these challenges, Bankhead remained a beloved figure in the entertainment world, known for her indomitable spirit and her ability to light up a room. Marlon Brando, method acting or madness? Renowned for his groundbreaking acting and magnetic screen presence, was equally famous for his unpredictable and often difficult behavior. His approach to acting and his interactions on set left an indelible mark on Hollywood, but not always for the right reasons. Brando's method acting, which brought depth and realism to his performances, also came with a reputation for being challenging to work with. One of the most notable instances of his difficult behavior was during the filming of One-Eyed Jacks, 1961, which Brando directed and starred in. His perfectionism led to endless takes, significantly delaying the production and infuriating the crew. His insistence on exploring the psychological depths of his character often came at the expense of the production schedule and budget. Another infamous episode occurred on the set of The Godfather, 1972. Brando, known for his disdain for memorizing lines, would often improvise or require cue cards, leading to frustration among his co-stars and the film's director, Francis Ford Coppola. His unconventional methods, while resulting in an iconic performance, created tension and challenges during the filming process. Brando's behavior extended beyond the set as well. He was known for his activism and outspoken nature, which, while admirable, sometimes led to clashes with Hollywood's power structure. His famous refusal to accept the Academy Award for The Godfather in protest of Hollywood's portrayal of Native Americans was a bold statement, but it also alienated many in the industry. In Last Tango in Paris, 1972, Brando's on-set behavior was particularly controversial. The film's explicit content and Brando's approach to his role led to a significant backlash and raised ethical questions about the treatment of co-star Maria Schneider. The film remains a subject of debate, with Brando's methods being scrutinized for their impact on his young co-star. Brando's later career was marked by a reputation for being uncooperative and difficult to predict. His demands became increasingly eccentric, and his commitment to projects was often questioned. This behavior cost him roles and strained his relationships with directors and producers. Katharine Hepburn, the fierce independent. Known for her sharp wit and strong personality, was a Hollywood icon who often clashed with the industry's expectations, particularly for women. Her independent spirit, while admirable, sometimes manifested in ways that made her notoriously difficult to work with. Hepburn's refusal to conform to Hollywood standards extended to her behavior on set. She was known for her directness and unapologetic nature, which, while refreshing, often rubbed directors and co-stars the wrong way. Her insistence on having things done her way led to several high-profile conflicts. One notable incident occurred during the filming of The African Queen, a 1951. Hepburn's relationship with director John Huston was strained as their strong personalities clashed. Hepburn's insistence on her artistic vision and her uncompromising approach to her character created tension throughout the production. Her co-star, Humphrey Bogart, and Huston found her to be demanding and at times inflexible, which led to a challenging working environment. Hepburn's off-screen behavior was equally formidable. She was outspoken in her opinions and often clashed with studio executives over her roles and public image. Her refusal to partake in the traditional Hollywood publicity machine, including avoiding the press and red carpet events, was seen as rebellious and difficult. While this stance was rooted in her desire for privacy and authenticity, it was often perceived as aloofness or arrogance. Her personal life, particularly her long-term relationship with Spencer Tracy, was another area where Hepburn defied conventions. Despite Tracy being married, their relationship was an open secret in Hollywood. Hepburn's involvement with a married man was controversial, and her refusal to address or apologize for the situation added to her reputation as a Hollywood maverick. Despite these challenges, Hepburn's talent and on-screen charisma were undeniable. She delivered numerous acclaimed performances and won several Academy Awards. However, her path was not without its obstacles, largely due to her uncompromising nature and willingness to challenge the status quo. Orson Welles, genius or tyrant? Celebrated for his extraordinary talent and visionary work, was also notorious for his tyrannical behavior on set. His perfectionism and unyielding control over his projects often led to clashes with cast members, crew, and studio executives. Welles' directorial debut, Citizen Kane, 1941, is a prime example of his genius, but also of his difficult nature. His insistence on complete creative control and his unorthodox filming techniques were revolutionary but also created significant tension. Welles often disregarded studio schedules and budgets, prioritizing his artistic vision above all else. This approach, while resulting in a masterpiece, strained his relationships within the industry. His behavior on set was sometimes described as autocratic. Welles was known to demand numerous retakes until he achieved the perfect shot, a practice that exhausted and frustrated his actors and crew. His communication style was often direct and uncompromising, which, while effective in achieving his vision, was perceived as overbearing and insensitive. Welles' difficulties with Hollywood extended beyond the set. His battles with studio executives were legendary. After Citizen Kane, he faced constant interference from studios in his subsequent projects. His unwillingness to compromise often led to unfinished projects and a reputation for being unreliable. This tension with the studios hampered his career, leading to a decline in his opportunities in Hollywood. One of the most telling incidents of Welles' challenging behavior was during the production of The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. His refusal to edit the film according to the studio's wishes led to a notorious conflict, resulting in the studio cutting and reshaping the film without his approval. This incident not only damaged his relationship with the studio, but also deeply affected Welles personally and professionally. Despite his undeniable talent, Welles' career in Hollywood was a constant battle for artistic freedom against the commercial constraints of the industry. His refusal to adhere to Hollywood norms, while admirable in its pursuit of artistic integrity, often manifested in ways that were considered arrogant and dictatorial. Shelley Winters, the fiery performer. Known for her powerful performances and Academy Award-winning roles, was equally famous for her fiery temperament and outspoken nature. Her strong personality often led to clashes with directors, co-stars, and studio executives, earning her a reputation as one of Hollywood's more challenging actors to work with. Winters' career was marked by several incidents where her forthrightness crossed into what many considered difficult behavior. One such instance occurred during the filming of A Place in the Sun, 1951. Winters, who was passionate about her role, frequently clashed with director George Stevens over her character's portrayal. Her insistence on playing the role her way led to tension on set, with Stevens finding her unyielding approach exasperating. Her off-screen behavior was equally notorious. Winters was known for her sharp tongue and lack of filter in interviews and public appearances, often speaking candidly about her personal life and her views on the industry. This openness, while refreshing to some, was seen as brash and unbecoming by others in the more conservative Hollywood circles. Winters' relationships with her co-stars were also a source of contention. She was known to be demanding and sometimes overbearing, expecting a level of commitment and intensity from her colleagues that not everyone was willing or able to give. This attitude, while stemming from her dedication to her craft, often resulted in strained working relationships. Despite these challenges, Winter's talent was undeniable. She delivered numerous memorable performances, including her roles in The Diary of Anne Frank, 1959, and A Patch of Blue, 1965. However, her difficult reputation followed her throughout her career, overshadowing her professional achievements to some extent. Shelley Winter's story in Hollywood is one of a fiercely talented actress who often let her strong personality overshadow her professional relationships. Her refusal to conform to the expectations of a female star in Hollywood was groundbreaking, but it also came with a cost. Charles Laughton, The Perfectionist's Edge. Acclaimed for his extraordinary talent and versatility, had a reputation in Hollywood that was as much about his difficult demeanor as it was about his acting prowess. His perfectionist nature often manifested in behavior that many found challenging and abrasive. Laughton's approach to his craft was meticulous and demanding, both of himself and those around him. This pursuit of perfection led to several notorious incidents on set. During the filming of Mutiny on the Bounty, 1935, Laughton, who played Captain Bligh, was known for his exacting standards and unrelenting criticism of his co-stars' performances, particularly towards co-star Clark Gable. His insistence on numerous retakes and his tendency to lecture fellow actors on their performances created a tense and often uncomfortable atmosphere on set. Another example of Laughton's difficult behavior was evident during the production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1939. Laughton's method of immersing himself in the role of Quasimodo was intense and all-consuming. He demanded complete silence on set and would become irate at any disturbances, often berating crew members for the slightest noise. His temper was quick and fierce, leaving many to tread lightly around him. Laughton's directorial debut with The Night of the Hunter, 1955, further highlighted his challenging nature. His vision for the film was uncompromising, and he often clashed with the film's cinematographer and crew over the minutest details. His inability to communicate his exacting vision in a collaborative manner led to strained relationships and a fraught production process. Off the set, Laughton's personality was equally complex. He was known for his sharp wit and often cutting remarks. While he could be charming and gregarious, he could also be dismissive and scornful, particularly towards those he felt were not at his level of intellect or talent. This behavior, while partly a defense mechanism against his own insecurities, often alienated colleagues and acquaintances. Despite his undeniable talent, Laughton's career was undoubtedly affected by his reputation for being difficult. Many directors and producers were wary of working with him, not wanting to deal with the challenges he presented. His perfectionism, while yielding brilliant performances, often came at the cost of harmonious working relationships. Laurence Olivier, the demanding thespian. One of the most revered actors of his generation, known for his immense contribution to both stage and screen, had moments in his career that painted him as less than the consummate professional he was often portrayed to be. One such incident occurred during the production of Marathon Man, 1976, where Olivier's interactions with co-star Dustin Hoffman became a notable example of his difficult behavior. Hoffman, known for his method-acting approach, reportedly stayed up for days to look suitably exhausted for a torture scene. Olivier, upon learning this, famously quipped, "My dear boy, why don't you just try acting?" While often recounted as an amusing anecdote, this incident highlighted Olivier's disdain for certain modern acting techniques, which he sometimes expressed in a dismissive and condescending manner. Another instance of Olivier's challenging demeanor was during the filming of Wuthering Heights, 1939. Olivier, who played Heathcliff, was reportedly difficult and cold towards his co-star Merle Oberon, who played Kathy. His behavior was attributed to his belief that Oberon was not suited for the role, and he made no secret of his opinion, creating a tense and uncomfortable environment on set. Olivier's directorial stint in The Prince and the Showgirl, 1957, where he also starred alongside Marilyn Monroe, further showcased his demanding nature. Monroe, who was struggling with her own personal issues at the time, found Olivier's exacting standards and lack of empathy difficult to handle. Olivier was openly critical of Monroe's work ethic and acting ability, often expressing his frustration to the crew and cast. This tension was palpable throughout the production and affected the overall atmosphere on set. In his personal interactions, Olivier could also be imperious and aloof. His status as a theatrical legend sometimes translated into a superiority complex in his dealings with other actors and directors. While deeply respected for his craft, Olivier's interactions were not always marked by warmth or humility. Despite these instances, Olivier's contributions to the performing arts cannot be overstated. Marilyn Monroe, behind the glamour. Marilyn Monroe, the quintessential symbol of Hollywood glamour, faced numerous challenges behind the scenes that sometimes led to behavior perceived as unprofessional. While her struggles with mental health and addiction are well documented, there were instances on set that painted her in a difficult light. One of the most notable examples occurred during the filming of Some Like It Hot, 1959. Monroe's frequent tardiness and inability to remember lines caused significant delays. Director Billy Wilder, known for his patience, was pushed to his limits. Monroe would often require dozens of takes to get a scene right, leading to frustration among the cast and crew. Tony Curtis, her co-star, famously quipped that kissing Monroe was like kissing Hitler, a comment he later claimed was made in jest due to the stress of working with her. Another incident took place during the production of The Prince and the Showgirl, 1957, where her co-star and director, Laurence Olivier, became exasperated with her work ethic. Monroe's reliance on acting coaches, her lateness, and her difficulty with lines led Olivier to express his frustration openly, contributing to a tense atmosphere on set. Monroe's behavior was not limited to film sets. Her personal life was marked by volatility, including multiple marriages and affairs, some with high-profile figures. These relationships often spilled into her professional life, affecting her reputation and the way she was perceived in the industry. It's important to note, however, that Monroe's behavior was often a manifestation of deeper issues. She struggled with severe anxiety, depression, and the pressures of fame. Her upbringing and the exploitation she faced in Hollywood played significant roles in her personal struggles. The industry at the time was not equipped to deal with mental health issues effectively, often exacerbating the challenges faced by stars like Monroe. Despite these difficulties, Monroe's talent and charisma were undeniable. She delivered iconic performances and remains a beloved figure in Hollywood history. One thing is true, the stars of the Golden Age knew how to have a good time. They were known for hosting some of the most famous parties of the era, with some of the top people in society in attendance. You could be sure to see all kinds of things at such parties, from overflowing booze to vices. While all of these are normal at parties, some of these Golden Age parties went too far and even made it into the news because of how scandalous they were. From the rumored orgies at Jane Mansfield's mansion to Fatty Arbuckle's deadly party, these 10 scandalous parties that took place in the Golden Age still shock people to this day. The Roaring Twenties Party. In the mid-1950s, America's power couple, Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, decided to host a party in their backyard. But this was not just any party. It was one that got people talking for a while. A good number of Hollywood couples threw parties in their homes during the Golden Age, but Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds' 1955 party was said to be unforgettable. At the time, Eddie Fisher was known for his smooth and romantic chart-topping hits, while Debbie Reynolds, who was clearly smitten by the singer, was making waves as an actress. They both were at the peak of their careers in the 50s, and they were determined to keep working towards their goals. But every now and then, the couple loved to unwind and have fun by partying. Achieving such great things and getting famous in their 20s left them feeling fulfilled, and what better way to celebrate than to organize a party-themed Roaring Twenties? They wanted to enjoy their youth along with friends, and that was exactly what they did. They decided to transform their garage into a playroom as they set out to host one of the most exclusive parties in town. They invited some young stars like Tab Hunter, the poster boy for Teenage Dreams, and Leon Tyre, the charming actor. When the party began, everything seemed innocent, and the atmosphere was electric with the promise of a night to remember. But soon enough, it became obvious that this was not a regular party. It was a party where seemingly innocent young stars came ready to unleash their wild side. The party gave them permission to shed their public personas and reveal a wild side hidden from the prying eyes of the paparazzi. It was said that the party was not one for innocent eyes, as subtle glances turned into lingering touches, and the stars allegedly consumed all kinds of substances.
From the pictures that circulated after the party, one could see that they all let loose and partied with reckless abandon. Most of the stars there were busy exploring their raw, untamed passion, and no one was left out of the fun. Only the people who attended the party truly know what happened that night, but rumors circulated that it was a bit too wild. No one expected it to turn out that way, especially because Debbie Reynolds and Eddie were known to have a wholesome image. MGM's Dark 1937 Party. The MGM's Grand Party in 1937 was an event that a lot of people enjoyed, but for one actress, Patricia Douglas, it turned into a night she desperately wanted to erase. According to reports, the party was organized in Los Angeles in honor of MGM's top salesman. There were already rumors about the strange things that the top men in the studio did behind closed doors, but not many people knew the extent of it. Before the party began, the studio brought the salesman in by train from different parts of the country, and it looked like it was going to be the most glamorous party of the year. The event was extravagant, with star-studded meet and greets, marching bands to lead the way, and even a fleet of motorcycle cops providing a grand entrance. There was a private rail car, brimming with promise, booze, and lively conversations. To commence the ceremony, which was to take place at the famous Ambassador Hotel, MGM's Louis B. Mayer stepped on stage and gave a speech. But it was after the ceremony that the convention's grandeur took a dark twist. The centerpiece was a lavish party with the comedic brilliance of Laurel and Hardy and the mesmerizing Dandridge sisters. And there was an open bar, ensuring that spirits were as high as the Hollywood Hills. Yet, amid all the dazzle, Patricia Douglas, a dancer and movie extra, found herself in a nightmarish situation. She was one of 120 young women told they were destined for an on-location film shoot that evening. However, once they arrived, they realized they were trapped in an event with a sinister underbelly. It was said that the party was not a normal party, but a stag party. Several strange acts were rumored to have taken place on that night, but one of the most shocking was what happened to the young actress Patricia Douglas. As the night wore on, Douglas, amid the glitz and glamour, was allegedly targeted by a drunken salesman who not only forced her to consume alcohol, but also took alleged advantage of her. Never in her lifetime would she have thought that someone would do such a thing to her. She was devastated and shocked, but Patricia was not one to stay silent. She raised her voice and spoke out about what happened to her. She explained every detail, hoping to get justice. Unfortunately, the court was not exactly in her favor, not because she was lying, but because MGM allegedly made the story disappear. MGM didn't want the world to know that one of their best salesmen took advantage of an underage girl at a party they organized. This kind of scandal would have tarnished the image of the studio forever, so they used their influence to make the scandal disappear. Jayne Mansfield's Wild Mansion Party. Mansfield was a Hollywood star who defined the word wild. She was known for her fearless embrace of sensuality and glamour. Her figure-hugging outfits, her trademark blonde bombshell hair, and her smile were the weapons in her arsenal. She made sure the cameras loved her, and they sure did. But the wildness didn't stop at her looks. Jayne was a party animal, and her Hollywood Hills mansion was the backdrop for some of the wildest soirees that ever graced the hills. If you want to have an idea of what her parties looked like, picture a mansion in the Hollywood Hills with the stars twinkling overhead and the poolside lit up like a movie set. This was the setting for one of Jayne Mansfield's notorious house parties, a place where the word excess took on a whole new meaning. Excessive drinking, late-night revelry, and perhaps more were part of the package. There are rumors that these soirees weren't just about clinking glasses and polite chit-chat. The night would often take on a more uninhibited vibe, with guests participating in some, let's say, risque activities. There were rumors that her guests got involved in orgies during these parties. Some people even said she taped these acts for her guests. Yet it wasn't just about the parties. Jayne Mansfield was also known for her infamous affairs with some of the biggest names of the time, including Robert Kennedy and his brother John F. Kennedy. And it's safe to say that both Kennedys seemed to have a thing for the blonde bombshell. What happened behind the closed doors of Jayne Mansfield's house remains veiled in the allure of an era when stars lived larger than life. the Las Vegas Wild Party. Although the stars of old Hollywood partied a lot, these parties were mostly private and exclusive. Most times, only the stars in attendance witnessed firsthand what really happened in these parties. However, some of these parties made it to the tabloids because of the rumors that circulated about them. One of these parties was a 1950 Las Vegas party that played host to Montgomery Clift and an array of luminaries. On this particular night, a lavish party was about to unfold within the hallowed walls of a nightclub. The club was said to have imported several Hollywood stars for the party, which started off as a banquet. As the clock struck midnight, a parade of Hollywood's most illustrious names descended upon the club. Among the stars, the charismatic Desi Arnaz, the enchanting Lucille Ball, and the alluring Marlene Dietrich took center stage. The party started with a fancy dinner, but as the hours ticked by, things got wild. Photographs captured by the flashbulbs of the era's paparazzi showed a glimpse of the spectacle unfolding behind the club's closed doors. Rows of champagne glasses glistened in the dimly lit room, and laughter and chatter filled the air. But it was what remained hidden from those photos that ignited the most scandalous rumors. While it looked like the party was a casual get-together, these Hollywood stars wanted to do more than just meeting and sipping champagne. They wanted to let loose and do things that they would never be caught doing in public. Behind the scenes, there was a lot going on. Rumors started to spread about this party. People said there was lots of drinking and even some drug use. Even the stars that were known to be reserved and laid back unleashed another side. The club made room for these Hollywood stars to do whatever they wanted. There were no restrictions, but they did all these with the understanding that whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. From every indication, the party turned into something wilder than anyone expected. The stars, known for their perfect public images, took off their masks, let loose, and did things that were a bit scandalous. Errol Flynn's weird parties. Because of how wild and wayward Errol Flynn was as a child, his own mother had a hard time coping with him. As a result of this, their relationship was rocky, and she even referred to him as the devil for some weird reason. Interestingly, Errol grew up to become an adventurous man who did not live by the rules, and he became a party animal too. While his career was thriving, the actor was hosting all kinds of parties in his mansion, and most of these parties were scandalous. Almost every week, he came together with the likes of Clark Gable, David Niven, and Olivia de Havilland to party. It was alleged that some of these stars even enjoyed watching the wild animals at the back of Flynn's house. It was said that his mansion was a sprawling Spanish-style abode with hidden alcoves and secret passageways. It's the perfect setting for a night of revelry. Now it's said that the drinks flowed freely at Flynn's parties, and it wasn't just your run-of-the-mill cocktails. We're talking about top-shelf liquor and champagne that never seemed to run out. The laughter and the clinking of glasses were only rivaled by the sound of jazz music filling the air. As the night went on, the parties took on a life of their own. Flynn, known for his charm and charisma, was at the center of it all, regaling guests with stories of his adventures. But it wasn't just about conversation. His parties were rumored to have been wild, with guests dancing with abandon and whispers of romantic escapades in hidden corners of the mansion. But it was said that most of the guests who attended his parties preferred not to talk about what happened behind closed doors. It was almost like he turned his house into a place where his co-stars came and did wild things they wouldn't dare to do on camera. Hedda Hopper's unforgettable birthday bash. You've probably heard of some wild Hollywood parties, but this one was next level. Hedda Hopper was a prominent American gossip columnist and actress known for her influential role in the world of Hollywood journalism. The star-studded guest list read the likes of Judy Garland and Clark Gable, two icons in their own right, walking through the door. You can imagine the paparazzi bulbs popping like crazy, capturing every moment of what was shaping up to be a legendary night. The setting was as lavish as they come. We're talking about decorations that could rival the grandeur of a blockbuster film set. The champagne was excess, and there was an air of decadence hanging heavy in the room. However, the party wasn't just about mingling and sipping bubbly. It was rumored that the drinks were more than just cocktails. They were a one-way ticket to the wildest stories you'd ever hear. The excessive drinking was almost a given, and the night seemed to unravel into one for the Hollywood history books. The details of what exactly went down have been hushed over the years, reminding us that sometimes what happens in Hollywood stays tantalizingly behind closed doors. Joan Crawford's 1951 party. Let's step back in time to 1951 when the glamour of Hollywood was in full swing. A party to remember was in the works, and the star of the show, none other than Joan Crawford herself. The party took place at Stork Club, New York, but it was not your regular party. The Stork Club in Hollywood is a name that resonates with late-night revelry and the kind of extravagance that only old Hollywood could conjure. This was the place where Frank Sinatra crooned, Marilyn Monroe dazzled, and Humphrey Bogart owned the night. But that fateful night, Joan Crawford was the star of the night. Joan Crawford was known for being one of the most prominent and versatile actresses in the golden age of Hollywood. She was celebrated for her remarkable career, spanning several decades, and was renowned for her roles in films like Mildred Pierce, Possessed, and The Woman. The actress was also said to be a free spirit. When it came to partying, she did whatever she pleased. So on that starry night, Joan Crawford arrived at the Stork Club in grand style, ready to let loose and paint the town red. Rumor had it that the party took a wild turn. The party may have looked like an innocent gathering on the surface, but it was nothing close to innocent behind closed doors. After the party, photographs from the party began to circulate like wildfire and showcased Joan, the epitome of Hollywood elegance, letting her hair down, indulging in vices, and having the time of her life. It was a party where some glamorous stars had their moments of wild abandon. Sophia Loren's Los Angeles party. It was the year 1957, and Sophia Loren was throwing a party that was about to go down in Hollywood's history. If you've ever seen that iconic snapshot of Sophia eyeing Jane Mansfield's daring cleavage, well, that's just a sneak peek of what was in store that fateful night. The Paramount Pictures lot was buzzing with anticipation, all for the lady of the hour, Sophia Loren. You see, this wasn't your average soiree. This was an ode to glamour, star power, and a touch of wildness. Hollywood bombshells and the creme de la creme of Tinseltown's leading men were in attendance. The guest list read like a Hollywood Walk of Fame. But it wasn't just the people in attendance that caught people's attention. It was the things that they indulged in. If there was a queen of wild parties, it would be her. And guess what? She was there, right by Sophia's side. You just knew this night was about to take a walk on the wild side. The pictures from the party showed that Jane Mansfield had let go completely and was ready to have a good time. Behind those closed doors, things were heating up. People indulged in vices, puffing on cigarettes and sipping cocktails like there was no tomorrow. The air was thick with laughter, secrets, and that unmistakable Hollywood magic. People whispered about clandestine affairs, hidden rendezvous, and wild antics that made this party legendary. The truth is, it played out just like any other wild Hollywood soiree. Excess, indulgence, and stories to tell for years to come. Sophia Loren's 1957 party was a night to remember, or maybe one to forget, depending on how much you indulged. The Wild Garden of Allah party. The Garden of Allah was a grand stage for Hollywood's wildest rendezvous in the 1920s and 30s. This wasn't just a hotel, it was a swirling maelstrom of glamour, gin, and gossip. The things that happened in this hotel would shock anyone who wasn't part of Hollywood's elite. Imagine stepping through the hotel's grand entrance, the faint strains of jazz dancing in the air. The lobby, adorned with Art Deco splendor, was calm before the storm. Once you entered the heart of the hotel, the real revelry began. This was the place where the likes of Errol Flynn partied. Excessive drinking was practically a Garden of Allah ritual. The bartender, a maestro of mixology, concocted cocktails that could make Hemingway blush. As the night aged, so did inhibitions. The stars, whether Fitzgerald with his novels or Flynn with his swashbuckling charm, were no strangers to the allure of a well-filled glass. But it wasn't just the booze that flowed there. It was secrets and scandals, too. You'd find affairs blooming amidst the potted palms, trysts concealed behind heavy velvet curtains. Stars whispered sweet promises under dim chandeliers, knowing full well that the dawn would uncover their transgressions. Gossip flowed through the garden like the wine in their glasses. In 1930, a notorious party at the garden had F. Scott Fitzgerald at the center of a fiery altercation. He reportedly threw a champagne glass at his wife Zelda during a heated argument. The party didn't just end in a whisper, it made headlines across the nation. These parties were wild. The Garden of Allah was a melting pot of vice and virtue, an incubator for scandal and salacious stories. Imagine, in the 1920s and 30s, the world was emerging from the constraints of prohibition, and Hollywood had a thirst to quench. If you'd attended, you'd be swept into a tempest of cocktails and carousing, where the laughter was raucous, the music was intoxicating, and the shadows concealed more than you could imagine. It was a place where stars shone brightest and fell hardest, where Hollywood's secrets and sins were laid bare under the California stars. These parties were a whirlwind of decadence and debauchery, where the only rule was to indulge in every whim. The excesses of the Marion Davies Beach House. On the sun-kissed shores of Santa Monica in the 1920s, that's where you'd find the exclusive world of Marion Davies Beach House bashes, where the newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst and his mesmerizing mistress Marion Davies played host to extravagant gatherings that redefined the very essence of opulence. It was in this very house that a Hollywood star almost got shot. The scene was set against the backdrop of the Pacific Ocean, where golden sands met the blue horizon. The likes of Charlie Chaplin, the silent film maestro, and Greta Garbo, the enigmatic siren, were said to have partied there. However, chaos wasn't just a stranger, it was an unwelcome guest at these parties. The very extravagance that made these parties legendary also made them vulnerable to spiraling into mayhem. It wasn't unusual for the evening to end in a storm of shouting, shoving, and sometimes even broken glasses. For example, a notorious incident took place in 1924 when Hearst, known for his temper, allegedly pulled a gun on fellow guest Charlie Chaplin during an argument. It was the sort of drama that would give tabloids enough material to fuel their presses for weeks. If you were to attend such parties, you'd be a witness to history, a participant in the surreal world where excess was an art form. You'd see stars of the silver screen at the pinnacle of their fame, dressed in their finest, yet sometimes descending into the depths of chaos. You'd see the allure of Hollywood, but also the dark side of indulgence. These beach house bashes weren't just parties, they were a representation of the things that happened when Hollywood stars came together and decided to indulge in whatever they wanted to do. When the cameras were not present, these beach house bashes were a source of escape from the pressures of fame. These parties, as crazy as they seemed, were like a scene from Judy Garland's life. In the shadowy corridors of Hollywood's golden age, there existed a group of defiant figures that etched their names into history. They were called the Hollywood 10. Who were they, really? Well, they were the creative minds, the screenwriters, directors, and producers who stood unwavering in the face of political turbulence, a defiant glare against the stifling Red Scare. Summoned before the House Un-American Activities Committee, they chose defiance over compromise, their audacious refusal to cooperate marking them as unfriendly witnesses. The consequences were severe, a swift and ruthless blacklisting by the Hollywood studio system that left their careers in ruins. We would be discussing some of the Hollywood 10 and some other Hollywood stars whose careers were ruined by politics. Lena Horne. Anyone who knew Lena Horne knew that she was someone who spoke her mind and damned the consequences. As she ventured into the world of cinema, little did she know that her outspokenness and political affiliations would become a thorn in her side, ultimately leading to her exclusion from the studio system during the turbulent 1950s. Imagine the heartache of being so close to your dreams, and yet having them cruelly snatched away. Lena Horne was on the brink of stardom, but her vocal support for causes that ruffled the feathers of the Hollywood elite led to her being blacklisted. It was as if the silver screen she aspired to grace had turned its back on her. Lena's life suddenly turned upside down, and she now had to start from the scratch, all over again. However, Lena Horne was not one to be defeated by the whims of the industry. In a remarkable act of resilience, she returned to her roots as a nightclub singer. This was her phoenix moment, rising from the ashes of rejection. She used this time to refine her craft, transforming herself into a captivating performer and a symbol of strength for those who faced similar adversity. As the years rolled on, Horne's career took an unexpected turn. She became a fixture on television variety shows, captivating audiences with her charisma and artistry. It was almost as if her blacklisting had inadvertently launched her into the hearts and living rooms of millions of viewers across the nation. But Lena Horne's story isn't just one of personal redemption, it's one of principled dedication. During the 1960s, a tumultuous period in American history, Horne emerged as a shining beacon of the civil rights movement. Her passion for equality and justice made her a prominent figure, not only on the stage but also in the fight for a more inclusive society. So while the Hollywood studio system may have rejected Lena Horne, it couldn't extinguish her star. Her journey from the glitz and glamour of the silver screen to the passionate advocacy for civil rights made her one of Hollywood's unforgettable stars. Lena's legacy continues to shine brightly, reminding us that true stars are those who stand unwaveringly for what they believe in, even in the face of adversity. Orson Welles. He was the enigmatic genius of Hollywood, but he found himself caught in the web of political intrigue during an era when the Red Scare was in full swing. Although his journey may not have mirrored the overt blacklisting that many artists faced, his career took a covert turn, influenced by the same current events. Here's how it all happened. Welles's defining masterpiece, Citizen Kane, was a cinematic triumph that raised eyebrows and ruffled feathers in the political landscape of its time. However, the film's thinly veiled critique of media mogul William Randolph Hearst, a noted anti-communist figure, was enough to draw the ire of those who saw conspiracy in every shadow. To the powers that be, the audacity of a young and innovative filmmaker taking on one of the most powerful men in media, subtly challenging the status quo, was irritating to them. In doing what he did, Orson Welles unwittingly placed himself on the radar of anti-communists who viewed any form of dissent with suspicion. While Welles may not have been openly blacklisted, he certainly navigated a career filled with political undercurrents. His innovative spirit and uncompromising vision sometimes brought him into the crosshairs of those who believed he treaded a dangerous path. In the end, his career was twice as difficult as it ought to be, and it was never really the same again. Dalton Trumbo. His story is nothing short of a Hollywood legend, and yet it's a tale etched in the darkest corners of the industry. Being a talented person with strong political views got him into trouble in the industry. As one of the most notorious members of the Hollywood 10, he became the embodiment of the blacklisting era and one of its most tragic figures. Trumbo's defiance in the face of the House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC, is the stuff of cinematic drama. When summoned to testify or betray his colleagues, he chose neither path. The result was a bitter exile from the industry he loved, a punishment for his refusal to compromise his principles. For years, he was denied the opportunity to directly contribute to the art form he cherished. But here's where the intrigue deepens. Dalton Trumbo, a name that had once been synonymous with screenwriting brilliance, found a way to defy the blacklist in secret. Under pseudonyms, he continued to craft some of his finest work. It's almost as if he was writing under the cloak of night, a hidden figure in the world of cinema. One of the most astonishing chapters of his mysterious career was his role in crafting the screenplay for Stanley Kubrick's epic classic, Spartacus. A film that would go on to become a monumental part of Hollywood history had the unseen hand of Trumbo guiding its words. It's a testament to his indomitable spirit and the enduring power of his talent. Even though exiled from the Hollywood limelight, Trumbo's writing prowess was in demand. In hushed tones and secret meetings, he was called upon to contribute his genius to various projects. His pen remained mightier than the blacklist that sought to silence him. Bertolt Brecht. A luminary of European theater, brought his distinctive voice to Hollywood with aspirations of leaving an indelible mark on the silver screen. However, his venture into the world of cinema would take a drastic and unwelcome turn, leaving a lingering shadow on his illustrious career. In 1947, Hollywood's studio system suddenly turned its back on Brecht. He was thrust into the tumultuous world of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. The mere mention of his name in the same breath as the HUAC sends shivers down the spine of many artists who endured those times. Initially, he, like many of his fellow artists, resisted the committee's demands. His refusal to testify reflected his defiance, his refusal to compromise his principles, even when faced with the unrelenting pressure of an industry that had once embraced him. However, the weight of the political climate eventually wore him down, and Brecht reluctantly took the stand to testify. It was a decision that would forever change the course of his career and reputation. To some, he had seemingly betrayed the principles he had once held dear. The aftermath of his testimony was a double blow for Brecht. Not only was he blacklisted by the Hollywood studio system, but he was also ostracized by the very artistic community that had once celebrated his brilliance. To them, his testimony was a betrayal, a concession to a system that had sought to silence dissenting voices. With his Hollywood dream shattered and his reputation tarnished, Brecht returned to Europe, where he lived out his remaining days. The man who had once been a beacon of artistic innovation found himself doing very little of the work that had made him famous. Lee Grant. His fate was a vivid illustration of the unpredictable and often unforgiving nature of the blacklist era. She was a young actress on the precipice of stardom when she garnered an Oscar nomination for her role in Detective Story. Her future seemed as bright as the Hollywood lights, but her outspoken criticism of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, abruptly derailed her trajectory. In a swift and devastating turn of events, Grant found herself blacklisted. It was as if the rug had been pulled from beneath her feet. The vibrant promise of her career came crashing down, and her dreams of Hollywood stardom were seemingly extinguished. However, Lee Grant was not one to be easily defeated. She displayed remarkable resilience and determination. After a decade in the shadows of the blacklist, she made a triumphant return to acting. But what makes her story even more intriguing is how she transformed her career. Grant transitioned into documentary filmmaking, carving a niche for herself in a realm that allowed her to express her creativity and convictions. Yet the question lingers, what could have been had she not been blacklisted for those 12 long years? Even Lee Grant herself hinted at the heavy toll the blacklist had taken on her career. She acknowledged that starting over when Hollywood stars were already in descent was no small feat. The lost time, the missed opportunities, and Lee Grant's Hollywood journey is a vivid illustration of the unpredictable and often unforgiving nature of the blacklist era. Lee Grant's story is yet another clear example of how the blacklist era could stall or redirect careers, but it also underscores the enduring spirit of artists who refuse to be silenced. Her journey, marked by both hardship and resilience, showed that even in the face of adversity, talent and determination can triumph over political adversity. Charlie Chaplin. He was the comedic genius who had already left an indelible mark on Hollywood, but then he found himself at a crossroads in the 1950s when his career was in its twilight years, and he had already gifted the world with some of the greatest films ever made. But it was during this period that he was unexpectedly called before the House Un-American Activities Committee, a pivotal moment that would shape the final act of his career. Chaplin, with his trademark aloofness, faced the committee. He didn't bend to their demands or expectations. Instead, he maintained that he was first and foremost a filmmaker, not a political activist. He was a man who had entertained the masses with his iconic tramp character, not one who sought to influence the world through political means. Yet, despite his nonchalant demeanor, the consequences of his encounter with the HUAC were far-reaching. Chaplin, a British-born actor and director who had called the United States home for years, was suddenly confronted with an unwelcome ultimatum. The moment he returned to the U.S., he would be arrested immediately. It was a harsh sentence for a man who had contributed so much to the world of cinema. The exile that followed forced Chaplin to remain in his home nation, away from the Hollywood lights where he had once shone so brightly. The possibility of more comedy magic on the silver screen in his final years was forever lost. And even though he was already successful up till that point, he couldn't go farther than that anymore. It became a clog in the wheel of his career progress. Dashiell Hammett, the literary luminary whose words breathed life into the world of film noir, was a master of his craft. His stories, drenched in dark intrigue and suspense, became the foundation for some of Hollywood's most iconic films, including the Humphrey Bogart classic, The Maltese Falcon. Hammett's influence extended beyond the written word. He even lent his talents to penning screenplays. Yet Hammett's illustrious career took a tumultuous turn, one marked by the political turmoil of the era. His affiliations with certain political groups and his willingness to stand by his convictions became a double-edged sword. It was this allegiance that drew the attention of the House Un-American Activities Committee. In 1953, Hammett found himself in the unsettling position of testifying before the HUAC. The ramifications were swift and severe. Hollywood, the same industry that had celebrated his work, turned its back on him. The blacklist loomed over him, darkening his prospects and casting a long shadow over his career. Hammett's descent into poverty in the later years of his life was a stark reminder of the price he paid for his beliefs and his uncompromising stance in the face of political pressure. The man who had once stood at the pinnacle of success as a writer was now a casualty of the blacklist, left to grapple with the harsh consequences of a political climate that stifled artistic expression. Ring Lardner Jr. In the heart of the tumultuous era known as the Hollywood Blacklist, a group of defiant individuals did the unthinkable by boldly airing their political opinions, even if it landed them in hot water. Among these courageous non-cooperators, one figure shone brightly: Ring Lardner Jr., a screenwriter of exceptional renown whose career would be forever altered by his unwavering commitment to principle. In the glittering realm of cinema, Lardner had crafted his own legend. His name had become synonymous with quality, his words breathing life into stories that captivated audiences. The pinnacle of success in the world of screenwriting seemed within his grasp. However, destiny had a different plan, one marked by a defining moment that would haunt and shape his legacy. Summoned before the infamous House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, Lardner faced a decision that would define him. He refused to yield, steadfastly opposing the committee's demands. His defiance was palpable, either through his refusal to testify or his answers that defied the committee's expectations. It was a choice that would seal his fate, forever altering the course of his life. The consequences were swift and harsh. Lardner found himself in the grim throes of imprisonment, the price of his unwavering spirit. A darker chapter had never been written, and many would have crumbled under such duress. But Lardner's resilience, a testament to his indomitable will, would not be extinguished. Then, in a triumphant return, the spotlight briefly found its way back to Lardner in 1970. His screenplay for the iconic Mass *H granted him a glimmer of the success he had once enjoyed. It was a moment of redemption, a return to the artistic heights he had once scaled. However, the zenith of his career that existed before the stand against the HUAC proved elusive. Ring Lardner Jr.'s story shows the enduring power of conviction and the profound sacrifices individuals made during the politically charged climate of the blacklist era. Jane Fonda: it is one thing to be a great actress, it is another to be a dogged and defiant personality off-screen, to be someone who uses her platform and fame to push positive change, and Fonda was fond of speaking up about things that mattered to her. But she may not even have discovered that part of her when she was giving brilliant performances on screen. Producers and directors loved her as she would always deliver on her roles. But then came the tumultuous 1960s and the Vietnam War, a conflict that would forever alter the course of Fonda's career. The actress, known for her beauty and grace, transformed into an outspoken activist against the war. Her stand, though principled, would prove to be a divisive and polarizing one. Journeying into the world of activism was a bold move. She used her fame and influence to voice vehement opposition to a war that had fractured the nation. Her controversial visit to North Vietnam, where she was photographed sitting on an anti-aircraft gun, became an enduring image of protest. It was a stark act of defiance against her own country's involvement in the war. At first, the support for Fonda's political stance was evident. She was hailed as a champion of the anti-war movement, a voice of the people. But as the war dragged on and her actions grew more controversial, the tides began to turn. Her image, once one of Hollywood's brightest stars, began to tarnish. The backlash was swift and severe. Some saw her actions as unpatriotic, a betrayal of her own nation's troops. Fonda's brave stand became a contentious point in the national discourse, with critics labeling her Hanoi Jane. Her public persona was under siege, and Hollywood, an industry that had once embraced her, started to withdraw its support. Roles in the entertainment industry became increasingly elusive. Casting directors and producers, wary of the controversy surrounding Fonda, hesitated to offer her the opportunities she had once enjoyed. The studios, like the public, were divided, and her career began to wane. As the war came to an end, Fonda's Hollywood journey was in tatters. The roles that had once been plentiful were now scarce, and the support that had once been unwavering had eroded. Her career, once full of promise and acclaim, had been forever altered by her principled stand against the Vietnam War. But in the end, was Jane affected? Of course she was. But did she care? Absolutely not. She knew that it was better to be brave and defiant in the face of oppression than to cower behind it. The Hollywood star who had once shone so brightly found themselves in the shadows, their careers forever changed by her unwavering commitment to their beliefs. Roseanne Barr. Brash, fearless, funny, sarcastic, and beautiful. These are not the typical features you'd find in a Hollywood star in the late 1980s, but Roseanne was not just any Hollywood star, she was a different version. In the late 1980s, Roseanne Barr, a brash and fearless comedian, emerged as a promising talent in the world of stand-up comedy. Her humor, a unique blend of sarcasm and wit, resonated with audiences. It was this appeal that paved the way for her own sitcom, Roseanne, which premiered in 1988. Roseanne was a groundbreaking show in many ways. It was a gritty, working-class family sitcom that delved into real-life issues, reflecting the struggles of everyday Americans. The show was a massive hit, and Roseanne Barr herself became a household name. For years, her career flourished, and her sitcom was a celebrated staple of American television. However, as the years went on, Barr's public persona began to change. Her political beliefs and outspoken nature took center stage. She became an ardent supporter of Donald Trump, which placed her in a political landscape that was increasingly polarized. Her controversial tweets and statements on social media were met with both support and condemnation. The tipping point came in 2018 when Barr posted a particularly offensive tweet that was deemed racist and offensive. The backlash was swift and severe. Her show, a revival of Roseanne, was canceled by ABC, the network that had once celebrated her as a star. The decision to pull the plug on the show was as much a matter of principle as it was a business move. Networks and sponsors were unwilling to associate with such controversy. In the end, Roseanne Barr's transformation from a beloved comedian and actress into a controversial political figure had significant consequences for her career. Her show, once a symbol of working-class America, was abruptly canceled due to the political controversy she had courted. The fallout was a vivid reminder that in the world of entertainment, even the most successful careers can be irrevocably altered by one's political beliefs and public behavior. Roseanne Barr's story is one of stark contrasts, marked by the meteoric rise of her sitcom, only to be brought crashing down by her controversial political stance. It serves as a poignant example of the interplay between celebrity, politics, and the consequences that can befall those who court controversy. From the Hollywood 10 to Jane Fonda and Roseanne Barr, each represents a unique chapter in the saga of careers derailed by politics. The Hollywood 10, led by figures like Dalton Trumbo and Ring Lardner Jr., chose defiance over compliance, enduring the harrowing consequences of blacklisting to safeguard their principles. As you might already imagine, this is no small feat. In the golden days of Hollywood, breaking into the industry was twice as hard as it is today. Therefore, every actor, writer, or producer did their best not to jeopardize what they had going. But in the face of their principles being tested, the Hollywood 10 stood their ground, knowing fully well it could well end their careers. There is a lot to learn from their stories. In the end, this all goes to show that we might have seen their entertainment side on the silver screen, but behind the curtains, they were dogged individuals who hold their thoughts and opinions highly. We can see that some of them were activists, others held strong political opinions, a far cry from what the world thought of them. However, these people may have had their lives ruined due to politics and their unwavering determination to stand their ground. They may be talented actors, but their skills are not the only things that their fans love about them. As a matter of fact, as far as Hollywood is concerned, fans seem to be more drawn to personalities than they are to acting skills. So what happens when the fans realize that an actor or actress isn't what they thought? What happens when one narrative changes their minds? These stars knew all too well what would happen to their careers if they messed up, so they used every means necessary to preserve their perceived personality. Joan Crawford. We all know about Joan Crawford, right? Star actress of the Golden Age, started her career as a dancer, and then eventually made it into Hollywood to dazzle her fans from all around the world. Well, that's the version that the rest of the world knows, but there's a deep secret that most people do not know, and it surrounds the beginning of Joan's career. She starred in an adult movie, and the aim was simple, to boost her acting career and get a lot of people talking about her. If word about her adult movie spread, that may be the end of Joan's career. The studio could not have that. This was when a man named Mannix entered the scene. You see, Mannix worked as a studio fixer for MGM. His job was essentially to make problems go away. It was said that using MGM's money, he went ahead to track down and buy every single copy of the tape and then destroy them all. He also spent another $100,000 to buy the original film negative, so no copy of the film could ever be made again. And so, a huge crisis was averted, and Joan was in the clear to continue her career and keep up appearances as Hollywood's golden girl. This would have been a terrible scandal, but it was covered up expertly. Loretta Young's adopted child isn't adopted. After The Call of the Wind in 1935, Loretta suddenly disappeared. No one saw her in any other film. She made no other media appearances. Granted, no shows. She fell silent. However, after 18 months, she resurfaced and decided to show the world what she had been up to in her media silence. Apparently, Loretta had decided to adopt a girl child and raise her like her own. It was her new passion, and she wanted to give that child a better life. But in reality, it turned out that Loretta had been involved sexually with Clark Gable, who was married to someone else. And on top of that, rumor had it that the encounter wasn't consensual on Loretta's part. Therefore, having a child from that union would do incredible damage to her career. So after 18 months of her disappearance, Mannix made it look like she had adopted a child, a newborn. But in fact, it was her child from her illicit encounter with Clark Gable, yet another scandal covered up. Alfred Hitchcock's obsession with his leading ladies. It was Tippi Hedren who bore the brunt of Hitchcock's fixation. As Hitchcock was riding high on the success of Psycho, he plucked the relatively unknown Hedren to star in The Birds. She became an instant sensation, but there was a catch. She was tied to a contract that left her in a vulnerable position, and to make matters worse, he made several advances towards her, all of which she resolutely rejected, and this infuriated him even more. Eventually, Hedren reached her breaking point, so one day, in a fit of frustration, she dared to call Hitchcock a fat pig and continued to spurn his advances. Little did she know this would be the spark that would ignite his relentless vendetta. He not only refused to work with her again, but also prevented her from collaborating with other directors. Despite her best efforts, Hedren's career never truly recovered from the onslaught of Hitchcock's vindictive schemes, but sadly, she could not report any of these to anyone. William Hearst's crime covered up. He was a force to be reckoned with, one of the most influential figures in the United States, and the very muse for Orson Welles' cinematic masterpiece, Citizen Kane. But beneath his veneer of power and wealth, Hearst was known to be ruthless, hot-tempered, and, on occasion, downright nasty. Now, it's only fair to assume that such a man wouldn't take news of his mistress having an affair lying down. Marion Davies, the object of Hearst's affections, was rumored to be entangled with none other than the iconic Charlie Chaplin. Instead of confronting Chaplin directly, Hearst devised an unconventional plan. He invited Chaplin and a motley crew of other film luminaries to join him on his opulent yacht. Enter Thomas Ince, a Hollywood producer specializing in Western films. His studio had once thrived, but it was now floundering. In dire need of investors, Ince boarded Hearst's yacht with the hope that this journey might be the key to turning his fortunes around. Little did he know how dramatically his fate would change. The official version of Ince's death, hurriedly printed in Hearst's newspapers, was that he had succumbed to sudden digestive problems despite prompt hospitalization. Curiously, Ince's body was immediately subjected to cremation. Yet, try as Hearst might to assert control over the narrative surrounding Ince's demise, unsettling rumors refused to be silenced. Whispers persisted that Hearst had taken aim at Chaplin, missing his mark and tragically striking Ince instead. The Los Angeles Times initially ran the headline "Movie producer shot on Hearst yacht," but it was abruptly pulled, and subsequent editions bore no mention of the shooting. William Hearst, using his power and influence, played off the whole thing and shut the mouths of anyone else who knew the truth, and the evil deed on that yacht that night was covered up. Gable in a hit and run. It's whispered in hushed tones that Eddie Mannix may have played a role in helping Clark Gable hide a dark secret. A hit-and-run incident, a tragic event that took the life of actress Tosca Rulian. Some say that Mannix, with his influential connections, orchestrated a cover-up. He allegedly persuaded an MGM screenwriter to shoulder the blame for Gable, protecting the Hollywood legend from scandal and public scrutiny. Paul Byrne's death was arranged. Being a multifaceted talent at MGM, he was not only known for his work but also for being the husband of the iconic starlet, Jean Harlow. His life, however, took a dark and mysterious turn when it's said that Mannix may have played a role in his untimely demise. It's a story that tugs at the heartstrings, a man who, in the face of marital strife, saw no way out but to take his own life. The details surrounding his death have always been shrouded in mystery, but some whispers suggest that Mannix's influence might have had a hand in this tragedy, and it was covered up. Patricia Douglas was abused. Douglas, a young aspiring actress, attended a casting call that turned into a nightmarish ordeal. She was told to wear a revealing outfit and entertain the men in attendance. Shockingly, the event took a harrowing turn, with allegations of Douglas being subjected to a heinous act. When Patricia Douglas tried to seek justice against Eddie Mannix and MGM for their alleged involvement, she found herself battling not only the power of the studio but a web of deceit. It's said that other guests at the event were paid to claim that Douglas had been uncontrollably drunk, painting her as unreliable and undermining her credibility. As the day of the court hearing arrived, a cloud of mystery descended. No lawyers representing MGM and Mannix appeared, leading to a sudden dismissal of the case by a federal judge. Mannix staged George Reeves' suicide. Long before Christopher Reeve donned Superman's iconic cape, another actor, George Reeves, stepped into the role of the Man of Steel. However, George Reeves's life took a tragic turn in 1959 when he allegedly committed suicide. But what lies beneath the surface is a scandal that was covered up. You see, George Reeves was entangled in a torrid affair with the wife of the great and powerful Hollywood figure, Eddie Mannix. Surprisingly, Mannix himself was rumored to have his own share of extramarital affairs, so he turned a blind eye to the romance between Reeves and his wife. However, the plot thickens. When George Reeves decided to end the relationship, allegedly, Mannix, driven by anger and vengeance, took drastic measures. Some sources suggest that he called upon his underworld connections, the mafia, to orchestrate Reeves' murder and stage it to appear as he took his own life. Jean Harlow's involvement in Husband's demise, the original blonde bombshell, had a roller coaster life in Hollywood. She skyrocketed to stardom after her appearance in Howard Hughes's film Hell's Angels. However, her personal life was tumultuous. At a tender age of 15, Harlow married her first husband, only to divorce a few years later. Her second husband met a tragic end in a gunshot accident, with speculation swirling around her involvement. This posed a significant scandal. To manage the situation, the studio coerced her into marrying cinematographer Harold Rawson, a union meant for public appeasement, quietly dissolving once the scandal faded from memory. Studio-aided abortions. Hollywood studios established secretive protocols for cases with promiscuous actresses. They were discreetly admitted to hospitals under false names for ambiguous procedures, attended solely by their private doctors, and strictly isolated from visitors. Tallulah Bankhead was one of the recipients of this practice. During her career, she was notoriously promiscuous, but she had to face a stark reality that the film studios wouldn't tolerate a pregnant star, leading her to undergo 4 abortions before reaching the age of 30, simply to save face in the streets of Hollywood. Picture this. You're an aspiring actor, fresh off the bus in Los Angeles, starry-eyed with dreams of making it big in Hollywood. The palm trees, the mansions, the red carpets, it's everything you've ever dreamed of. But there's a shadowy side to this city of dreams, secrets that the top Hollywood producers whisper about behind closed doors. You start hearing whispers, murmurs of certain practices, certain topics Hollywood producers will never dare discuss publicly. Why? Because acknowledging them could shatter the very foundation of the entertainment industry. It's more than just the casting couch or the competitive nature of auditions. It's something deeper, more sinister. You think to yourself, is this the price of fame? Are these the unspoken rules I must navigate? Dive with me into the enigmatic underbelly of Hollywood, where we unveil what producers won't ever talk about. This might just be the most riveting story you've never heard. They manipulate contracts. Read the fine print, everyone advises. But when you are an aspiring and talented actor trying to break into the Hollywood industry, you may not really care about agreements or the fine print. All you want is to make some money and get some recognition so you can get other opportunities. Producers know this, and sadly, they use this to their advantage and their advantage only. A lot of Hollywood producers have been known to find great actors and actresses and prey on their naivety. They work on projects with some of these actors and pay them stipends, even when the movie project does really well. By the time the actor knows what's going on, it is already too late and they have to lick their own wounds. But you do not have to take my word for it. Let's expose some of the culprits, shall we? Ever heard of the 1986 movie Aliens? Or perhaps Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in 2011? These movies were produced by the same man, John Richardson, and while he has been given a lot of accolades for his work, his dark side is that he exploits actors. One glaring example of an exploitative contract in the case of Megan Parker, a talented young actress with dreams of making it big in Hollywood. She auditioned for a supporting role in a promising independent film, only to find herself caught in a web of deceit. The producer, John Richardson, preyed on her lack of industry experience and offered her an unfair contract with unfavorable terms. The pay rate offered was well below the industry standard, and the contract included an exploitative clause that prevented her from pursuing any other acting opportunities for the duration of the film's production. Megan Parker was way too new to the game to know what she was getting herself into, but when she found out she had been ripped off, it was too late. She had signed the contract and was bound by the agreement. Another notable case where producers exploit actors is the notable case of Academy Award-winning actress Emma Thompson. However, in this case, things didn't go quite as the producer, Robert Harrison, had planned. Thompson had signed on for a leading role in a highly anticipated film, only to discover that the contract limited her creative input and forced her to accept a significantly reduced pay rate. In most other cases, actors usually bow to the whims of the producer, but Thompson was not going to take this lying down. Unwilling to compromise her artistic integrity, she took a brave stand and negotiated fiercely with Harrison, eventually securing more favorable terms and preserving her independence as an actor. Sadly, Cases like this where the actor wins are usually very rare. As a matter of fact, a lot of these greedy producers get away with their exploitation and none is the wiser. According to sources, some actually love to look out for desperate yet talented young actors and then feed them soothing words about how they would become stars if they accepted the contract. They make the contract look good, and because the actor is new and has no legal representation, they sign it in excitement and eventually get trapped in the web of lies the producer has woven.
An unravelable web.
Even worse is that as many cases are out there, they are only the reported ones. There are likely to be hundreds more cases like this that never see the light of day as a result of either the actor's shame or the producer's influence. In the grand scheme of things, a lot of producers are guilty of this evil but will never share it with the world. They also force the actors, too, not to share their stories, and this is one of the dark secrets that they keep under wraps. But perhaps this is a better evil when compared to the next industry secret that producers will never tell anyone. They exchange movie roles for time in the sheets. Let's face it, Hollywood is probably the most competitive industry on the planet. Millions aspire, but only a few dozen eventually make it in. On the path leading to Hollywood success, there are a lot of obstacles and stumbling blocks in your way, and this is why we always celebrate anyone who makes it in and steals our hearts with their amazing talent. As the American dream depicts, you can make it in America if you work hard and remain persistent, right? Wrong. To a very large extent, producers have a huge influence and they decide who gets in and who doesn't. Seems reasonable, doesn't it? The only problem is that while some of these producers base the casting on talents, some do so based on other talents outside of acting. These producers reportedly prey on young women aspiring to make it in Hollywood, and they are always on the lookout for beautiful young women who are desperate enough to satisfy their sick desires. How do they do it, you ask? Well, it's said to start at some exclusive parties and events that double as their hunting grounds. They term it as exclusive parties, and almost everyone who's anyone in Hollywood shows up. Rationally, this would be Candyland for any actress aspiring to get opportunities in Hollywood, and they know this, so they simply throw this big party and wait. Sure enough, hopeful actresses show up and soon the whole place is littered with them, like moths to bright lights. And then these unscrupulous producers swing into action. They shower these hopeful actresses with attention, charm, and promises of stardom. They would say anything to get these women excited and even more hopeful. It's a deadly dance of ambition and vulnerability, and these women find themselves caught in a web where the desire for success blinds them to the hidden price they may have to pay. Allegedly, some of these producers would subtly propose a transaction between them and the talent desperate for a chance to prove themselves. The transaction is obviously outside the confines of professionalism and talent. Something more personal and intimate involves them meeting the producers at a hotel. A lot of these actresses are blindsided by this request, but by then it is too late. They are threatened if they refuse and told they will never get another opportunity with any other producer because they will badmouth and blacklist them. Given not much of a choice, these young hopefuls are lured into a deceitful trap between the devil and the deep blue sea. This occurrence is more common than most people imagine, and it is still whispered around in the industry today. The young hopefuls have no choice but to succumb and keep silent afterward, no matter how disturbed they feel about it. It also does not help that these producers are so wealthy and powerful, and so even when the producers don't eventually give them these roles, nothing is said and done against them. Silence is maintained because the victims fear the consequences of speaking up against producers so revered and respected. Producers discriminate in sharing profits. If we are being honest, we all have our favorite actors and actresses from our favorite movies. For some reason, we prefer them to all others, and we can decide to watch a movie just because they are in it. But it turns out that some Hollywood producers secretly have favorite actors in the industry, and when it comes to sharing profit, they tend to favor their favorites and give the other actors significantly lower payouts. This particular secret was still largely unknown until the controversy behind the film American Hustle. In this captivating drama, several actors embarked on a journey that would change their lives forever. Jeremy Renner and Bradley Cooper. both talented and established in their craft, stepped into the shoes of their characters, hoping to bring them to life on the silver screen. Little did they know that behind the scenes, a different script was being written, one of unequal compensation and shattered expectations. As the cameras rolled and the story unraveled, the cast of American Hustle soon discovered a startling truth. While their co-stars, Jennifer Lawrence and Amy Adams, basked in the glow of fame and fortune, Renner and Cooper found themselves standing in the shadows of inequity. It was revealed that they had received a significantly smaller percentage of the film's profits compared to their female counterparts. The curtain lifted, and the spotlight illuminated the dark reality that lurked beneath the film. The American Hustle profit-sharing dispute became a battle cry, echoing across the industry, shedding light on the pervasive issue of pay disparity. This real-life drama drew attention to the systemic inequities that had long plagued Hollywood. With the stage set and the truth exposed, a call for change reverberated through the hearts and minds of actors and audiences alike. The question arose, why were talented individuals, equally dedicated to their craft, receiving unequal compensation? The answer, it seemed, lay in the twisted webs of favoritism and the invisible hand of power, the producers. There was reason to believe that the producers of the film purposely dispensed the profits that way due to favoritism and no other cogent reason. Allowing controlled substances on set. Sure, every producer wants their star actors to be at peak performance on set and deliver well, but a hushed industry secret is that sometimes some producers go a little too far in boosting their actors' morale. It was whispered among the elite circles that the stars, those A-list luminaries that graced our screens, were bestowed with an endless supply of their favorite vice. The rumor mill churned with tales of a clandestine arrangement between the silver screen and their beloved performers. But the truth was far stranger than fiction. One day, legendary actor Dennis Quaid stepped forward, shedding light on this mysterious underworld. He dared to reveal the hidden truths. Dennis confessed to a casual addiction to coke, a shadow that once loomed over his rise to stardom. It all began when he embarked on his journey to the City of Angels in 1974, innocent and curious. In those early days, he dabbled with the controlled substance, a mere taste of what was to come, but it wasn't until he secured roles in mainstream films that the grip tightened and the allure of the white powder intensified. Coke, as he disclosed, held a secret place in the budgets of these movies, camouflaged under the name petty cash. It was a cunning disguise, ensuring that the substance-fueled sets remained shrouded in secrecy. Dennis Quaid confessed that the sets themselves became havens for the indulgence of this powerful substance. It was freely distributed, passed around like candy, for it had become the norm, an unspoken ritual that bound the actors and actresses together. In the intoxicating haze of those moments, Dennis Quaid unknowingly danced with his own downfall. Reflecting upon those tumultuous times, the actor admitted that his addiction to coke had been one of his gravest mistakes. It had torn apart the very fabric of his existence, leaving no stone unturned. The bright lights that once illuminated his path had dimmed, replaced by a haunting darkness that threatened to consume him entirely. But Dennis Quaid was not alone in this tumultuous journey. Even the iconic Jack Nicholson, a man who had charmed audiences with his enigmatic presence, had his own tale to tell. In a candid interview back in 1980, he nonchalantly remarked, "Drugs ain't no big thing." It was a bold proclamation, a testament to his unabashed love for getting high, a pursuit that occupied his attention for 4 glorious days every week. The Hollywood producers, those puppet masters of the silver screen, held the strings that controlled the destiny of their stars. They crafted an environment where the allure of controlled substances could flourish and where the actors and actresses could reach unprecedented heights of performance. They have fixers on speed dial. If you think about it, Hollywood is a business. Everyone you see in the industry may be there for the passion, but the money is a really huge motivating factor, from the actors to the directors and most certainly the producers. However, in the business of Hollywood, the public decides what sells and what doesn't. And one of the things that just does not sell are actors with scandals. It is bad for business, and these producers will do anything to get rid of scandals around the actors they want to work with. Now, admittedly, this is not so bad, but they would go to any lengths. Supposing an actress was working on a project and a scandal hits, the producers are put in a very bad spot. If they continue with the actress, the project is doomed to fail, and ultimately, it is too late to stop. So what do? They call a fixer, someone who is skilled at making problems go away. Michael Citrick was one of Hollywood's greatest fixers, and this was only underground knowledge. Citrick is a seasoned professional in the industry, known for his skill in turning negative stories in the press into positive ones. He has been labeled as a spinmeister, demonstrating his expertise in reshaping public narratives. Over the years, Citrick has successfully handled the reputation management of numerous high-profile clients, such as David Lee Roth and the controversial NFL quarterback Michael Vick. When it comes to handling controversies, Citrick excels. If a celebrity finds themselves bombarded with negative press, there's no doubt that Citrick is the go-to person they would want by their side. His ability to tackle difficult situations head-on is his greatest strength. You might notice a sudden surge of positive articles about a famous individual who has been caught in a compromising situation, and it's highly probable that Citrick, or someone similar to him, is diligently working behind the scenes. In essence, Citrick's expertise lies in crafting a new narrative, one that highlights the positive aspects and minimizes the impact of negative events. He understands the power of perception and works tirelessly to shape it in favor of his clients. By utilizing various strategic methods, Citrick helps his clients regain control over their public image and navigate the tumultuous waters of media scrutiny. And most Hollywood producers have a Citrick on speed dial. They mount an unhealthy amount of pressure on their stars. In their pursuit of ephemeral beauty, Hollywood starlets are not only judged by their adoring fans and the unforgiving public, but also by the agents and producers who wield their power like a double-edged sword. Like a relentless storm, these unseen forces push them towards perilous paths, demanding that they shed pounds in the most perilous of ways. But this is not just a claim. As a matter of fact, Demi Lovato backs this up when she recalls a time when she was younger. She would stare at her belly and ponder if it would ever be taut and flat. As the sands of time flowed, she finally found her way to Hollywood, and there her eating disorder was not only noticed, but encouraged by some of the producers she worked with. Naomi Watts is another example. Known for her ethereal presence, she dared to share a harrowing truth. In their quest for her perfection, she was forced to starve, sacrificing her own well-being upon the altar of a red carpet appearance. But let us not forget the voices that rise from within this realm, like whispers of defiance against the engulfing tide. Ashley Graham, a beacon of resilience, divulged a chilling encounter with a producer whose motives reeked of malevolence. As he waved crisp $20 bills before her very eyes, he hissed promises of greater fortune if only she would shed her weight. Many other actresses have stories like these. It is the dark secret that the producers keep close to their hearts. Some producers may be involved in organized crime. Amid the glimmering lights of the Sunset Strip, one establishment stood out in Hollywood's lore, the Trocadero, affectionately known as the Troc. This legendary hotspot became a nexus where stars, producers, and mobsters crossed paths, blurring the lines between the silver screen and the criminal underworld. Here, amidst the clinking glasses and laughter, celebrities and studio heads found themselves rubbing shoulders with figures like Mickey Cohen, a notorious gangster with deep ties to organized crime. The Trocadero's allure lay in its ability to draw in the rich and famous, creating an atmosphere of mystery and intrigue. The convergence of Hollywood elites and criminal masterminds painted a vivid picture of a world where fame and infamy intersected. While the stories of these encounters remain largely anecdotal, they hint at a symbiotic relationship that fueled speculation about the entanglement of organized crime within Hollywood's power structures. The reach of organized crime in Hollywood did not dissipate with the passing of the Golden Age. In the 1970s, whispers of nefarious dealings emerged with links to the production and distribution of major films. One such case was Bryanston Pictures, a company entangled in controversy and rumored connections to a prominent mafia crime family. Bryanston Pictures found itself in the spotlight due to its involvement in the release of the cult horror classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film, directed by Tobe Hooper, sent shockwaves through audiences and became an iconic symbol of the horror genre. However, behind the scenes, Bryanston Pictures was dogged by allegations of mafia involvement, creating a sinister aura that surrounded its operations. While the exact nature of the connections remains speculative, these allegations perpetuated a perception of organized crime's influence in Hollywood. The potential infiltration of the film industry and producers by criminal elements conjured a chilling notion that the shadows cast by the silver screen extended beyond mere storytelling. Hiring paparazzi. When actors become subjects of paparazzi attention, they are thrust into the limelight, leading to the construction of a persona that is both relatable and fascinating to the public. And Hollywood producers are well aware of this fact, and so they use it to their advantage, hiring paparazzi for the actors they want to work with. But why? Well, for one, paparazzi images, accompanied by media coverage, depict actors in various situations, ranging from red carpet events to private outings. This curated portrayal of actors helps shape public perceptions, often aligning with the characters they portray on screen. The audience begins to associate the actor's personal life with their on-screen roles, thereby creating a deeper emotional connection with their performances. But sometimes, these products take the paparazzi thing a little too far. Controversy. While the intention behind hiring paparazzi is to generate positive publicity, controversy can inadvertently arise from their intrusive tactics. In some instances, scandals and personal struggles become fodder for tabloids, attracting widespread media attention. While this type of publicity may be detrimental to an actor's public image in the short term, it can paradoxically generate increased interest in their future projects. The public's fascination with scandal and redemption narratives often translates into higher viewership, as audiences are drawn to witness an actor's ability to overcome challenges both on and off screen. The practice of producers hiring paparazzi for the purpose of enhancing an actor's popularity is not without controversy. Critics argue that it invades an individual's privacy and perpetuates a culture of intrusion and harassment. Moreover, they contend that it undermines the authenticity of an actor's image and fosters a reliance on manufactured publicity rather than genuine talent. Balancing ethical concerns with the demands of the entertainment industry remains a challenging task for all stakeholders involved. But remember, Hollywood is a business, and these producers intend to run it well. On the 30th of March, 1939, at the bustling premiere of Maisie in Los Angeles, a star named Ann Sothern captivated the silver screen, embodying the vivacious and witty character that would define her legacy. Unknown to the glittering crowds and even to Sothern herself, this role would etch her name into the annals of Hollywood's golden age, yet also cast a shadow over her diverse talents and contributions. As Sothern's Maisie charmed audiences nationwide, a complex narrative unfolded off-screen, one of ambition, resilience, and the untold struggles within the gilded cages of Hollywood. This story, much like a cipher hidden in plain sight, reveals the intricate layers of an actress navigating the highs and lows of fame, battling the industry's typecasting and gender biases, all while leaving a mark subtly obscured by time. Through the lens of her career, we delve into a journey not just of a forgotten luminary, but of Hollywood itself, exploring the enigmatic legacy of Ann Sothern, whose brilliance on and off the camera remains a testament to her undervalued impact on the cinematic world. The Untold Beginning. In the brisk winter of 1909, the small town of Valley City, North Dakota, became the birthplace of a future star, Harriet Arlene Lake, known to the world as Ann Sothern. Born into a family where music and the arts were the lifeblood, her mother, Annette Wide Lake, a concert singer, and her father, Walter J. Lake, a pianist, the stage was set for Ann's entrance into the world of entertainment from her earliest days. The journey from Valley City to the glowing marquees of Hollywood was marked by a series of pivotal moments and encounters that shaped Sothern's early career. In the mid-1920s, the Lake family relocated to Minneapolis, where Ann's passion for acting took root. By the tender age of 16, Ann was already performing in local theater productions, demonstrating a natural talent that could not be ignored. The year 1927 marked a significant turning point when Ann and her mother made the bold decision to move to California. The allure of Hollywood's burgeoning film industry was irresistible, and for a young actress like Ann, it promised the fulfillment of her dreams.
Yet the reality of Hollywood in the late 1920s was far from the glamorous ideal portrayed in fan magazines and on the silver screen. It was a place of fierce competition, where countless hopefuls vied for a chance to shine. Anne's early years in Hollywood were fraught with challenges. She found work where she could, taking on bit parts in films like Broadway Nights, 1927, and enduring the hardships of the Great Depression. The industry was in flux, transitioning from silent films to talkies, a shift that spelled the end of many careers. Undeterred, Anne honed her craft, studying at the Pasadena Playhouse and taking on various stage roles, all the while waiting for her breakthrough moment. That moment came in the early 1930s, though not without its trials. Anne's initial contract with Columbia Pictures ended after a year with little to show for it. However, her persistence paid off when she caught the eye of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer MGM scouts, leading to a contract with one of Hollywood's most prestigious studios. It was under MGM's banner that Anne Southern would find her niche, not as a glamorous leading lady, but as the vivacious, quick-witted Maisie Ravier, a role that would define her career. The Maisie series, which began with Maisie, 1939, catapulted Anne to fame. Her portrayal of the smart, independent, and resourceful title character resonated with audiences, offering a blend of humor and heart that was both refreshing and relatable. The success of Maisie led to 9 sequels, securing Anne Southern's place in Hollywood's pantheon of stars. Yet the path to stardom was not solely defined by her on-screen achievements. Behind the scenes, Anne navigated the complexities of studio politics, the fickleness of public adoration, and the personal sacrifices required by her profession. Her journey from the stages of Minneapolis to the silver screen of Hollywood is a testament to her resilience, talent, and unwavering determination to succeed against the odds. Anne Southern's early years, marked by both struggle and triumph, laid the foundation for a career that would span over 6 decades. In those formative moments, a star was born, one whose legacy would endure long beyond her final curtain call. The Maisie controversy. In 1939, MGM introduced audiences to Maisie Ravier, a savvy and spirited showgirl with a heart of gold, portrayed with charismatic aplomb by Anne Southern. The film Maisie was not just a hit. It spawned a series of 10 movies produced until 1947, transforming Southern from a talented actress into a household name. Yet, as the series progressed, it became a double-edged sword, both elevating and entrapping Southern within a specific persona. The character of Maisie, while beloved for her wit and resilience, became a gilded cage for Southern. The actress, whose range extended far beyond the lighthearted comedy of the Maisie series, found herself battling against the typecasting that often accompanies a recurring role. Despite her success, Southern's artistic ambitions chafed under the constraints of repeating the same character, yearning for roles that could showcase the breadth of her talent. The internal conflicts at MGM regarding the direction of the Maisie series further complicated matters. Southern frequently found herself at odds with studio executives and writers over the development of her character. She pushed for storylines that would allow Maisie to evolve, seeking depth and variety in her roles that the formulaic approach of the series seldom offered. These creative disputes highlighted the tension between the studio's commercial interests and the artistic aspirations of its contracted talent. Notable figures within MGM, including producer J. Walter Rubin, who directed the first Maisie film, initially supported Southern's vision for the character. However, Rubin's untimely death in 1942 and the studio's prioritization of consistency over creativity left Southern navigating the series' future with less support. The struggle for creative control was emblematic of a broader issue within the studio system, where actors, despite their contributions to a film's success, had limited influence over their career's trajectory. As World War II raged and the American public sought escapism in cinema, the Maisie series continued to be a profitable venture for MGM, reinforcing the studio's reluctance to alter a successful formula. Despite this, Southern's performances never waned in quality. She infused each portrayal of Maisie with freshness and vitality, a testament to her professionalism and commitment to her craft. The end of the Maisie series in 1947 did not mark the end of Southern's struggle with typecasting, but it did close a chapter on a part of her career that was both defining and restrictive. In the years that followed, Southern sought out diverse roles in film and television, demonstrating her versatility as an actress. Yet the shadow of Maisie Ravier lingered, a reminder of the complexities of Hollywood stardom and the personal costs of professional success. Hollywood's double standards? The glimmering facade of Hollywood's golden age often masked the stark realities of its double standards, particularly when it came to gender. For actresses like Ann Sothern, navigating this landscape meant contending with an industry that celebrated femininity on screen while simultaneously constraining the roles women could play, both on and off the set. As Sothern's career progressed through the 1930s and 1940s, she, like many of her contemporaries, found herself caught in a paradox. On one hand, her roles in films and the Maisie series showcased strong, independent women who could hold their own against any adversity. On the other, the very industry that provided these roles imposed rigid expectations on actresses, dictating not just the characters they played but also their public and private lives. The era was marked by the enforcement of the Motion Picture Production Code, colloquially known as the Hays Code, which sought to regulate content deemed morally questionable. While it impacted all aspects of film production, the code also reinforced traditional gender roles and limited the depiction of women's independence and sexuality, affecting the types of roles available to actresses. Beyond the screen, the studio system exerted control over actresses' images, often requiring them to conform to idealized standards of beauty and comportment. Contracts could include clauses that dictated personal choices, from dating to weight management, reflecting broader societal expectations of women. These constraints were emblematic of the double standards that permeated the industry, celebrating the allure of Hollywood's leading ladies while tightly controlling their autonomy. Ann Sothern's experiences reflect these contradictions. Despite her success and popularity, she too was subject to the whims of studio executives and the limitations imposed by the era's gender norms. Yet through her performances, Sothern subtly challenged these conventions, bringing complexity and strength to her roles that resonated with audiences and hinted at a broader spectrum of female experience than Hollywood was often willing to acknowledge. The double standards of Hollywood's golden age offer a window into the complexities of gender, power, and representation in an era that shaped modern cinema. As we look back on this period through the lens of contemporary understanding, the stories of actresses like Ann Sothern gain new dimensions, highlighting not just the challenges they faced, but also their contributions to the evolving landscape of film and culture. The Secret Loves. In the whirlwind of Hollywood's golden age, where the personal often intertwined with the public, Ann Sothern's romantic life unfolded beneath the studio's watchful eye. Her marriages, notably to Roger Pryor in 1936 and Robert Sterling in 1943, were not just personal milestones, but events that mirrored the complexities and expectations of a star under the studio system's glare. Ann's first marriage to Roger Pryor, a fellow actor, became a subject of public fascination. The couple married on September 18, 1936, in a ceremony that, while glamorous, hinted at the pressures they faced under the Hollywood spotlight. Their union, celebrated in the press, also underscored the challenges of maintaining a relationship when both partners were in the demanding world of show business. Despite their efforts, the marriage succumbed to these pressures, ending in divorce in 1943. Almost immediately following her divorce from Pryor, Sothern married Robert Sterling, another actor whose career was on the rise. Their marriage on May 23, 1943, was seen as a fresh start for Sothern, who sought stability and happiness away from the film set's demands. Yet this relationship, too, was subject to the strains inherent in Hollywood marriages. The couple welcomed a daughter, Tisha Sterling, in 1944, which brought joy to their lives, but also new challenges. The marriage ultimately ended in divorce in 1949, leaving Sothern to navigate the complexities of life as a single mother and leading lady. Beyond her marriages, rumors of Sothern's relationships and associations filled the gossip columns. Her close friendships within the industry with figures such as Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz provided fodder for the press, highlighting the blurred lines between personal affiliations and public perceptions in Hollywood's tightly knit community. Sothern's romantic life, though marked by its highs and lows, was characterized by a resilience and independence that mirrored her on-screen personas. Despite the studio system's attempts to manage its stars' images, Sothern navigated her personal life with a level of discretion that allowed her to maintain a degree of privacy, a rare feat in an era where stars' lives were open books. Her experiences reflect the broader narrative of women in Hollywood during the mid-20th century who balanced their careers, personal desires, and the industry's expectations. Southern's journey through love, heartbreak, and motherhood offers a window into the realities behind the glamour, revealing a woman who, despite the public's gaze, sought to carve out her own path in love and in life. Blacklisting fears. The late 1940s and 1950s were tumultuous times for Hollywood. The HUAC, established to investigate alleged disloyalty and subversive activities on the part of private citizens, public employees, and those organizations suspected of having communist ties, turned its eye toward Hollywood in 1947. The entertainment industry, known for its liberal leanings and high-profile personalities, became a focal point for accusations of communist infiltration. Ann Sothern, whose career was at its peak during this period, found herself in an industry rife with fear and suspicion. While Sothern herself was not called before the HUAC, nor was she blacklisted, the atmosphere of the era inevitably affected all who worked in Hollywood. The blacklist, a result of the hearings, led to the shunning of actors, writers, directors, and others accused of communist affiliations, many of whom were blacklisted based on rumors or associations rather than concrete evidence. During this time, Sothern continued her work in both film and television, including starring in The Ann Sothern Show, which ran from 1958 to 1961. However, the climate of fear and the industry's self-censorship meant that topics that were deemed controversial or too politically charged were avoided. This environment limited the scope of creative expression and the types of roles available, even for those not directly implicated by the HUAC hearings. Notable figures during this era, such as screenwriter Dalton Trumbo and actor Charlie Chaplin, faced significant professional and personal repercussions due to their alleged communist ties or leftist sympathies. Trumbo was one of the Hollywood 10, a group of writers and directors who were jailed and blacklisted for their refusal to answer the HUAC's inquiries regarding their political affiliations. The impact of the Red Scare on Hollywood was profound, creating an environment where suspicion prevailed over creativity, and careers were often collateral damage in the fight against perceived communist influence. For actors like Ann Sothern, navigating this landscape required caution and resilience, as the implications of being associated with blacklisted individuals or ideologies could be career-ending. The Forgotten Pioneer. Ann Sothern's career trajectory took a pioneering turn when she transitioned from film to television, a move that was both innovative and risky at the time. In the early 1950s, television was still an emerging medium, often looked down upon by Hollywood's film elite. Sothern, however, saw an opportunity. In 1953, she starred in Private Secretary, a television series that ran until 1957. The show was a success, showcasing Sothern's comedic timing and charm to a new audience and proving that television could offer substantial roles for film actors. What is less known about Ann Sothern's venture into television is her role as a producer. The Ann Sothern Show, which aired from 1958 to 1961, was not just a vehicle for her acting talents. Sothern also took on an active role in its production. This was at a time when female producers were a rarity in Hollywood. Her involvement in the production aspects of the show marked her as one of the first women in television to take on such a role, paving the way for future generations of female producers and directors in the industry. Sothern's pioneering work extended beyond her on-screen roles and production work. She was also instrumental in negotiating the rights and syndication deals for her television shows, demonstrating an understanding of the business side of entertainment that was ahead of her time. Her foresight and negotiations ensured that The Ann Sothern Show and Private Secretary would be enjoyed by audiences for years to come, through reruns and syndication, a concept that was still in its infancy in the 1950s. Despite these significant contributions, Ann Sothern's role as a pioneer in the television industry is often overshadowed by her film career and her portrayal of Maisie. Yet, her work in television, both in front of and behind the camera, highlights her versatility, foresight, and willingness to embrace new challenges. Ann Sothern's pioneering efforts in the television industry are a testament to her innovative spirit and her significant yet often overlooked contributions to the medium's development. Her work laid the groundwork for future actors and producers, demonstrating the potential of television as a platform for creative expression and business acumen. The Final Act: A Legacy in Shadows. As the golden era of Hollywood cinema began to wane, Ann Sothern's career entered what could be considered its final act. By the 1960s, the landscape of the entertainment industry had shifted dramatically, with television becoming a dominant force and the studio system that had once ruled supreme undergoing significant changes. During this period, Sothern's work transitioned more towards television, including a notable role in The Ann Sothern Show, 1958-1961, which solidified her place in the pantheon of television stars. However, it was her return to film in the 1980s that marked a poignant moment in Sothern's career. In 1987, she received critical acclaim for her role in The Whales of August, a film that featured screen legends Bette Davis and Lillian Gish. Sothern's performance in this film at the age of 78 showcased her enduring talent and versatility as an actress. Despite the accolades, including an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, this late-career resurgence did not fully rekindle the widespread recognition one might have expected for such a storied career. Sothern's legacy, particularly in the later years of her life, is reflective of the broader narrative of many Golden Age Hollywood actors whose contributions have faded into the background of popular cultural memory. Her work, spanning over 5 decades, contributed significantly to both film and television, yet the full extent of her impact is often overlooked in retrospectives of the era. Ann Sothern passed away on March 15, 2001, in Ketchum, Idaho, leaving behind a body of work that spans a critical period in American entertainment history. Her journey from the stages of North Dakota to the silver screen of Hollywood and onto the television sets of America's living rooms is a testament to her adaptability, talent, and perseverance. While Sothern's name may not be as readily recognized today as some of her contemporaries, her legacy endures through her contributions to the evolution of acting in film and television. Her pioneering work in television production, her memorable performances across multiple decades, and her ability to navigate the changing tides of the entertainment industry mark her as a significant figure in Hollywood history. Giovanni Jackson, Daddy's Girl,